And hello, baseball fans. Hello. How are we doing? What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of MLB Trade Talk. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces here in the chat. What is going on? Brendan DH, one of our members, is here. Ethan is here. What's going on? Caden Lichford, hello. Nuke Blaster, what is going on? Hunter Williams, what's going on? How are we doing? Hello, one of our moderators is here as well. Nicholas, what's going on, my friend? Thank you once again. Thank you always, Nicholas, for always coming out. You're such a pro at being a moderator. I love having you around. Joe Kagan, what's going on? Mason Duffy, hello. Oh, my goodness, we're already getting a super chat coming in. What in the world is going on? I mean, we got to take it right away. JM1231. Hey, Robbie, 10 straight for the M's. Oh, my goodness. I knew they had it in them. I'm thinking the whole year, what the heck is this team doing? And now they're finally figuring it out, and they look great. JM1231, thank you for starting off today's show with the super chat. Do appreciate that. Robert, what's going on, my friend? Long time no see. Chris Mason, hello. And everyone, if you haven't noticed, John is not here. Instead, we have a pro of a replacement. We have Josh. Josh, what is going on, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm no John Bitzer, but I hope I can provide some insight and have a little fun here today.
Yeah, man. So tell the wonderful people at home, who the heck are you? Who is Josh? What do you have to do with baseball trade values?
Yeah, so I'm the associate editor of Baseball Trade Values. I joined on with John very early on in the site's history. He had kind of started working some of the numbers, working the model on his own, just as a little project in like an Excel spreadsheet. But once he kind of decided that he wanted to try and make it a site, he knew that he would need some help. Yeah. He and I knew each other from an A's forum, Athletics Nation.
Yeah.
And he reached out to me, and I've been helping out with the site ever since, helping out with stuff on the back end for data, with articles, podcasts, kind of helping out everywhere I can.
Yeah, man. The podcast is quite enjoyable. I listened to that podcast. It's at the worst, it's probably the best background noise you can have. It's always great around this time of the year too. Especially in the off season as well. I mean, when you're just kind of hearing these things, and for a lot of people, that maybe don't have quite an understanding of how trades work. I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. Baseball Trade Values is the best trade simulator out there. I know you guys don't want to brag, but it's true. It is what it is. And there's still a lot of non-believers out there, unfortunately. But the podcast, I do want people to listen to that podcast more because, when sure you can kind of read some blogs and you can kind of look at, obviously the trades, and there's always those people out there that are banging their fists on the table like that doesn't make sense. But when you actually listen to you two talk on the podcast and kind of break it down a little bit more, it makes a lot of sense. Because I think, do you feel that way as well when maybe people that aren't really familiar with the site, they take a look at a trade and they're like, what the heck is that? But like, I feel like the podcast honestly is great. What do you think?
Absolutely. Like I love having a longer form kind of platform to actually speak our minds and to kind of go deep into some of this stuff, because there's only so much you can do with, like, a lot of people will come to the site and they'll plug some stuff into the simulator and then they'll go away, or they'll find us on Twitter, a short tweet thread explaining a trade that happened. But when John and I can go back and forth and talk about an important trade or proposal or whatever for 15, 20 minutes and actually explain each of the values, it kind of just adds credibility to what we're doing, and it helps inform everyone. I feel like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been times where I make a trade and it's like, to some people, because I got to say, one of the toughest crowds are the people on Baseball Trade Values. Like, it is very hard to please people on that. So if you ever get a featured trade, it's honestly one of the most rewarding. I had one featured trade. It was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, man, because no one ever likes my trade proposals on there. I get like 20 downvotes on one. I'm like, come on, I wasn't that bad. So like sometimes I'll put like a comment below the trade and hopefully someone reads it. So, man, but the podcast, it's great. Everyone at home, please go listen to that and just go use the simulator. It's fun. You won't even notice that 4 hours go by, and then it's just great. So you can pretty much just waste an entire day just going on Baseball Trade Values. So anyway, enough of me blabbering. We got some stuff to talk about. I mean, me and Jean the last couple of weeks, I don't know if you've tuned in, but we've really since we're kind of just getting into trade season here, we've only been able to really give like who we think are our top trade candidates, maybe some under the radar candidates. But this week we actually have some news, some rumors to really kind of bite your teeth into. So you picked a good day to come onto the show. And unfortunately, John, how terrible. He has to go watch his son at his baseball game. Terrible. Gosh. Oh my goodness. We already got a super chat here. Let's get to the super chat before we get into the news. Oh man. You're not familiar with the people here, but this is our Orioles fan, and I've been praising the Orioles all year. I didn't think they would be at this point. No one did, but This is our top Orioles fan, I would say. Conman752 with a $20 bomb, always supporting the channel. Seen some suggestions that the O's trade for Blake Snell for Santander. Is it smart for the O's to begin taking on salary while getting someone like Snell, who is controllable, while making space for a call-up like Stowers? We had a different topic that we were going to start with. I kind of just feel like with this, we got to just kind of jump into that's going to be our first story of the night. Let's talk about the Baltimore Orioles. What the heck are the Orioles' plans for the deadline? I mean, my goodness, this Orioles team is just on complete fire right now. Let's just go take a look at the standings. Let's share the screen here. And as of right now, the Orioles are at 500 playing in Chicago. I have not been looking at the scores. Let's take a look. How are the Orioles doing? Please tell me they're losing. Crap, they're winning. So the Orioles, they're 44-44. They're red hot. They've won 9 in a row. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Right off the bat, I know this has definitely thrown a wrench probably into how you're thinking about the Orioles. I think it has for everyone, because I think for me, I was thinking they were more going to sell, but a part of me was also thinking that because this is a team that is going to be pretty good or could be very good in the next couple of years. So in my opinion, even going into this season, I think, they could sell off some pieces, but maybe they could also find some ways to add. Where are you at with the Orioles right now? What are you thinking?
So Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic just wrote about them the other day and kind of whether they can take that stance of buying and selling. And I don't think that's out of the question for them. But some of the names that he brought up, and he brought up Frankie Montas and Luis Castillo, since they each have the additional year of control. Snell fits into that category as well. He's got a year of control beyond this season. I don't know if that's quite where they'd be looking, because even as good as they've been, it's still a bit ahead of schedule, right? They can't bank on 2023 being the year. I think that's still a little bit earlier than anyone really expected. The hot streak is fun, and it's fun to see them playing well from kind of a neutral perspective. I know for your Red Sox, it's not the best thing in the world, but
we're doing okay. I mean, we're losing again tonight. I hate the Rays, but anyway.
But I don't know if that's exactly where they would be looking, but I don't mind the idea of them looking at some, medium to long-term options here. Because I kind of compare them a little bit to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'm actually out here in Arizona. I'm not a huge D-backs fan or anything, but I'm pretty plugged into the fan base and the team here. They're at a similar spot where they have this loaded farm. They got some young players coming up, and at some point you got to stop rebuilding. You can't keep shuffling pieces. You can't keep trading all of your talented big leaguers. It's why I don't think the Orioles trade Cedric Mullins. I don't think the D-backs trade Zach Gallen. You got to have those guys at some point if you want to win. So I think everyone thought the Orioles would have another year or two in the A's, Reds, Royals, cellar dweller spot where they just sell off everyone they can. But I think they're kind of in that next tier right now. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think it's not a great deadline right now for some of those more controllable types. Those are going to be a little bit harder to acquire this deadline. There aren't as many on the market. So maybe it's a little quieter from them this deadline. They'll move off some rentals potentially and some relievers that they might not have as much faith in longer term. But I think this offseason you could see them getting really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the two guys that I think were being named as more of the logical possible trade candidates were Trey Mancini and even someone like Anthony Santander, where Trey Mancini probably more likely because he's closer to free agency. But I don't know, coming into this year, I remember thinking like, all right, who could be some guys that the Orioles maybe trade? Mancini was the first one that came to mind, but it's weird with him because there's also the sentimental value behind it, just because, you know, he overcame cancer and he's back to being a productive player. To me, that's kind of a guy, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you feel like Mancini is a guy that you more try to extend, or would that be a guy if a possible trade maybe came up? Do you think that could be a possibility if maybe they could somehow add? I don't know. What are you thinking about Trey Mancini?
It's a tough spot because in a lot of ways he kind of fills the same role that Ryan Mountcastle does.
Right.
And Mountcastle does it cheaper and younger and obviously more team control there.
Right.
But on the flip side of it, as you mentioned, there's the sentimental attachment there. He's a fan favorite and such a great story. We have his trade value on the site at just $3 million because he is kind of he's a non-elite slugger, not a whole lot of defensive value. He is just a rental. So, I mean, if you're the Orioles, is it worth the PR hit and potential clubhouse implications of
absolutely
dealing a guy who's that important to your team, to your franchise, for what a 26-year-old reliever in Double-A and a lottery ticket starting pitcher in rookie ball? Like, is that worth it to you? And I mean, maybe they can eat some salary, get that value up a little bit, but I personally don't see the benefit there. I mean, I'm no MLB owner or GM. I don't know about the financial necessarily restrictions that they're being implemented there and some of the incentives that they have there to cut that salary potentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a guy I'd extend super long term, again, because
Mountcastle
I agree. Does the same thing. So it's a weird spot. If he had like 2 years left on his of team control, it would make sense. And so maybe you could look into a shorter term extension if he'd be willing to do something like that, just to have him as that kind of veteran presence for the young team coming in. I think he could be really valuable in that kind of role.
Right.
I wouldn't trade them if I were him, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they did, because it's a business and they do a lot of things that aren't in the fans' best interest quite often.
And absolutely. And with the Orioles, their bread and butter this year has been their bullpen. If you take a look at the overall rankings, Baltimore has the 4th best bullpen according to Fangraph WAR. So that's a strength. If you look at the starting pitching, it's 16th overall, but they've been kind of hanging around the top 10, somewhere in this range in the last month or so. They've been pitching really well, getting good pitching from their starters. And when you look at the offense, that's actually one spot I wouldn't be dealing from, because Baltimore, that's their weak point this year, 22nd overall for the year. And if you take a look at the last 30 days, Baltimore, let's take a look here, 19th. So it's not like, and whatever, we can look at the last couple of weeks as well. Baltimore, how you doing with the offense? Where are we at? Baltimore, 16th. So it's not like the offense is really a huge strength. Like I was thinking, could maybe you, because there are some pretty decent names here, but to me, you want to be hanging on to these guys because my goodness, it is storming out here. I don't know if you heard that thunder, but to me, why would you deal some of these guys when the offense is really what you should be adding? I think the starting pitching. Now, the only thing I could think of, I think we both agree, where if they could add something or if they sell something, it would have to be also adding something at the same time. Where do you see any players on this roster where you could pull that off? The one that I'm thinking, again, I wouldn't want to trade from the offense, but maybe someone like Anthony Santander, where he has control and he has a little more. Like Mancini only has $3 million. It's like, what's the point of trading him? You're really not going to get much for him anyway. So, but Santander, if we look at the values on here, he's at 10.4. So maybe that's a guy. My goodness, this thunder, I am scared right now.
Heard that one.
I don't know if you heard that, but he's the only one that I could think of to possibly trade. Maybe you can get a starter for like depth, someone that's under control for like the next year or two. I don't know. What do you think? Well, who do you think would be the most logical trade candidate for the Orioles?
That's the main name I had in mind if you're talking a more significant deal there, because you're not going to deal, like I said before, I don't think they're going to deal Mullins.
No.
We talked about Mancini. Mountcastle's there for a while. They like Austin Hayes a lot as well. Like, and once you get past that point, it's like, okay, yeah, they can send Rougned Odor to somebody for cash considerations, player to be named later, whatever. But that's not moving the needle. They might do that still, but whatever. I think Santander is kind of the odd one out. He's a quality bat. A team like the Padres or the Guardians could use a guy like that, switch hitter. You know, he might be close to league average, slightly above offensively, but that's kind of what they need in the corner outfield spots, both of those teams. So someone like that could make sense, and getting, whether it's, you know, kind of a depth starter type that's got kind of fourth or fifth starter potential there, or, you know, a combination of a back end starter and a prospect for farther down the road, like something interesting like that. And maybe you can even look at it a little bigger. You know, you typically don't want to plan a rebuild too much around relief pitchers. So we talked about how great their bullpen is. Maybe Jorge Lopez is a guy they sell high on. He's been fantastic, but there's no track record there. He's already 29.
Yeah, $4 million of value.
Yeah, and that value could go up between now and the deadline as he continues to perform at this level, but could still sell high before he's a zero. We saw them do that last offseason with Tanner Scott and Cole Sulser. Yeah. So that's really the most I could see as far as kind of a buying perspective for them. You did mention as well how good some of their pitching has been, and that's been without John Means. That's been without Grayson Rodriguez, DL Hall. They got so much more on the way. I don't think there's necessarily a strong argument for them to put too many pieces toward a shorter term guy that would really fortify that rotation if he's going to be gone in a year, a Castillo or a Montas. Or going back to what we originally prompted this, the Santander for Snell. I don't think that's quite there. We have Snell at $0.7 million in trade value just because he's making a fair amount of money and he's had his struggles the last couple of years. So he's pretty close to even value there for his contract. And like you mentioned, Santander's at $10.4 million. So that doesn't quite work out there. And I don't think it works out strategy wise either. But I do think something to the Padres or the Guardians, Santander for more of a back end depth arm, maybe somebody with some upside. That would work out well for them, I think.
Now, I want to present something here. Do you think there is? I'm fiddling around with the simulator right now. I know we kind of talked about the Orioles. They have to, you know, stick to their plan. They're rebuilding. You know, they're obviously accelerating that process this year. I mean, really, they're kind of reminding me like the Tigers last year, where the Tigers were looking like they were pretty ahead of schedule and they were playing really well. Obviously, it wasn't enough to make the playoffs. The Orioles seem like they're even in a better spot than that. But do you think, your own personal opinion, do you think there is any chance at all that maybe, somehow maybe, that the Orioles jump in on the Luis Castillo or Frankie Montas sweepstakes? Because the only reason I bring that up is because they're not rentals. They do have a year of control. Maybe it would only be 1 year of control. Maybe you could get them signed to an extension, but I don't know. If you throw in like a Santander, a couple of prospects, that could probably get something done for someone like a Montas. I mean, depending if they like the package or not, but I don't know. Do you think that's a real possibility? If you were to give it like a percent on how likely that could be, you know, let's say they keep winning. Let's say they win like 15 straight. They're 5 over 500 next week. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think there's any real possibility they could jump in on that?
I think it would take really continuing this winning streak and actually, you know, holding a playoff spot, maybe one game, 1.5 games back of a playoff spot when we get closer to the deadline there. Because the main hurdle there is, I'm not sure Santander specifically would appeal to either the Reds or the A's, given where they are in their rebuilds right now. You could see it could be some sort of a 3-team deal or even just 2 separate deals. You trade Santander to the Padres and maybe part of the prospect return from the Padres goes to the Reds or the A's or whoever. So I can maybe see that. Just scrolling through some of their prospects right now, there aren't any big names that jump out to me right now as, okay, this guy's blocked. He's a trade candidate. I don't think they're going to move Hall or Colton Cowser.
That's actually, I was putting my trade together. First guy, Hall, because to me, if you're going to trade Castillo, you're going to have to give up a pretty decent pitching prospect. That's the one guy I would think the Reds would be like, okay, yeah, we want that guy. So that would be tough. I mean, that's where I just don't think the Orioles, like, if they were like, oh boy, this is like they're one piece away from like a World Series, that could be a deal. But again, a little too far away. And I think that's, it's good to see people excited to maybe think about those kind of things, especially Orioles fans. It's been a few years, but I think it's good to be excited about those kind of possibilities. But I think it's also, usually it's better stick to the long run, stick to the long-term game plan. And that's just my opinion. I would love to see it. Well, I would hate to see it as a Red Sox fan, but how exciting would that be? My goodness. Like the Orioles right now, I think last year the Mariners were America's team last year. Now it's like the Orioles are that team. And I don't know. It is exciting either way. They're having just obviously a great run, and they're winning right now. So, I mean, my goodness, what a better way to go into the All-Star break than on this win streak. So, we'll have to check back. We'll come back next week, and we'll see where the Orioles are at, and then, then we'll talk about them getting both Castillo and Montas, and maybe someone like Bryan and Drury as well.
People are going to be keeping an eye on them, and that's not something we thought we were saying a month ago.
I have always, I hate playing anyone in the AL East, but I've always had. I think I have PTSD from 2011 when they lost to Baltimore and they missed out in the playoffs. I literally just couldn't believe it that night, and ever since then, I think I've always just been like, I can't stand this Orioles team. Like, I just cringe every time we play them. And that's like the Rays as well, and we're losing. I think we're still losing to them. But anyway, let's move on from the Orioles. Con Man, thank you for the $20 super chat. Really do appreciate that. And we had a couple others before we move on. I don't want to miss them. Let's pull them up, because last week I feel like I missed one because there's just so many comments and it's hard to just kind of scroll through. Where is it? We had one from Nick. Does Benintendi get traded to the AL East, since we learned earlier today that he isn't allowed to play in Toronto? I really think that is starting to become a storyline now. And, wherever you line up on that whole thing, I'm not arguing any of that stuff, so don't even try it in the chat. But it's something you have to consider now. And it's part of the game. You got to play to the rules. And Benintendi right now, he would not be able to go play in Toronto. Do you think, I don't know. I'm starting to think, especially with the team like Toronto, where, they're cold. They just fired their manager today. I mean, what the heck was going on? My goodness. I forgot to even bring that up. I went live earlier and reacted to it, but they definitely needed to make some kind of a change, get some kind of a spark there. Obviously, it seemed like probably wasn't the right fit. Just your quick reaction. What did you think about that whole thing?
Shocked. I'm sure a lot of the same reactions you had. Very surprised, even more surprised that Montoyo was gone before La Russa, but that's a whole another conversation.
Right.
But it just seems like you're saying, like, it wasn't really the right fit, which makes it weird that they didn't take care of this in the off season. Because I guess, you're coming into the season with much higher expectations if you're the Blue Jays than the last couple of years. And if you want fight, if you want passion and aggression, it seems like Montoyo really isn't your guy. He's more of a happy, calm, cool, collected clubhouse guy. Not to say, I mean, I'm pretty sure, I think I saw a stat earlier in the season. He got tossed out like a ton. He got ejected a ton in the first couple months of the season. So there's some fire. But maybe he's just not the guy that pushes you over that edge there. And that's okay. And they need someone to kind of light a fire under their behinds. I don't know what the rating is on the show. But if he wasn't that guy for you and you knew you needed that, why not take care of that in the offseason? I'm not sure on that one.
I think that really, what I think it is, I think I talked about this earlier. I think the Orioles had a big part of that, where they're just playing extremely good baseball right now, and ownership is like, what the heck? Like, this Orioles team is 2 games behind us. Like, what are we doing? I think that was a big reason for it. It's like, this team is about to catch us. We're about to move into last place, and this is not acceptable. So, yeah, I think that was a big reason for it. I think it was probably just stuff in the clubhouse, just wasn't all that, didn't seem like much of a fit. I've seen Blue Jays fans complain about the way he's handled the bullpen. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. It worked for the Phillies. We'll have to wait and see how it works for the Blue Jays. But
didn't work for the Angels.
It does not. It did not. But that just goes to show the Phillies had a good team, and you just got to put the right guy. And the Blue Jays have a good team, so we'll have to wait and see. But as for Benintendi, I think that's going to be really interesting. And we're going to talk about Benintendi here just a little bit, because there are some teams in the American League East that a team in the American League East that could look to acquire Benintendi. But Nick, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We had one here. Washington's finest 88, 10 in a row for the Mariners. We got a lot of hot teams right now.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect timing. I knew the Mariners had it in them. And hey, good for them, man, because I'm thinking in my preseason predictions, I picked them to go to the ALCS, and I look like an idiot like a month ago. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shut down my channel now because I look like a moron. But thank God they are picking up the pace.
It's a long season.
Huh?
It's a long season.
It is, man. And that's why it's like, can't really jump to conclusions. Cardinals doing something right now. I'm not sure. Do you mean like actually right now, like at this moment in their game? Oh, they're up 5-0 against the Dodgers. All right. I like the Cardinals, man. I had the Cardinals and the Blue Jays in the World Series. Probably won't happen, but E-Rock TV, thank you very much. Cardinals are an interesting team. Look out for at the deadline. We'll have to see if they jump in on anything. And let me just we got 2 more here before we move on. What team will Ketel Marte be traded to? I don't think he's going to get traded. He signed that extension. After that, I'm like, nah, it's over. So I don't know. I don't think they move him. Do you think?
No, I thought it was pretty unlikely before the extension. It just didn't make sense. John and I talked about it constantly about how, he's kind of only a second baseman at this point, and there aren't a lot of teams that are looking to pony up that much for a pure second
the injuries
baseman.
Too. He's a question mark. I'm guaranteeing teams were lowballing, and it's I don't see him getting moved, and that's a guy that can help you sell some tickets. So
exactly.
We had one more here from Joe Girardi Hater. Joe, we were just talking about the Phillies. What do y'all think the Phillies get? I know Robbie said Taylor and Barlow. I did my video talking about I did one trade for each team, and for the Phillies, I did a package of Michael Taylor and Barlow, because I feel like even with Harper, they still could have upgraded center field, and a bullpen arm would always be nice too. But the Phillies aren't going to pay more just to get another arm for the pen. So I think the Phillies are an interesting team, obviously, because they're right in the thick of things. They have an interesting conundrum here where they're ready to win. They don't have a lot of farm. So, and I don't know if they move on from someone like a Mick Abel or an Andrew Painter. To me, Andrew Painter gives me those vibes where the Phillies just really like him. That was their guy in the draft last year. And I think and obviously he's been doing well. Any thoughts on the Phillies at all? Like, what are you thinking?
I thought in the offseason that they lined up so well with the A's, because the A's had all these guys that were, obviously they were doing a full fire sale, and they had all these players that were at positions where the Phillies had needs and were also good defenders. And we saw what has happened instead. The Phillies decided to build the worst defense on the planet, and then they lose Harper and all of that mess.
Well, I like Michael Taylor, man. He's doing really well defensively. I think that would, and he won't cost a lot. Even with Barlow, that would be a package they could afford. It's not like those guys are doing anything with the Royals, but right. I agree. I thought that would be nice.
But, I think Taylor, he's not a natural fit in center field, but maybe Benintendi makes sense there.
Yeah.
Hap, if they want to go more pricey, Laureano, there's some options. I think they need someone who has a glove. It's got to be one of their top priorities. And then bullpen help wherever they can get it. I don't know if they go more costly for a controllable guy like Barlow, or if they kind of go bargain hunting. A bunch of rental types, veterans that they can just have in for half a season for real cheap, but they need some help, I think.
I got the guy. I'm going to tell you who the Phillies get. This is who the Phillies get. They're not going to have to trade anyone. They're not going to have to go to the free agent market. You know who they're going to get? They're going to go get Kumar Rocker in the draft. They're going to go get him. That's my pick for the Phillies in my mock draft tomorrow. That will be out tomorrow. Man, could you imagine the Phillies getting Kumar Rocker and, after the Mets not getting him, and then Kumar Rocker, I don't know, somehow, some way they meet in the playoffs, and then Rocker closes them out. Oh my God, that's storytelling. I actually really do think that's realistic, because a lot of teams are looking at him as a guy that you can just move through the minors, like even through this year, because he was just pitching in the Frontier League, I believe. And I don't know. I think he is an enigma in that draft. I didn't realize how quickly the draft was coming up. Like, I was thinking for some reason it was next week, and I'm like, holy crap, it's this Sunday. I've been like kind of just doing a little bit of here and there, looking into some guys, but I'm like, oh boy, I gotta start stepping up on this a little bit. So
it's the butterfly effect of the late start to the season.
Dude,
everything else
is wild, man. I'm like a week behind on everything. But I've been hearing everyone, or not everyone, but I've been reading some articles where the Red Sox really could be looking at Kumar Rocker, and supposedly there's a rumor out there that him and a team have already agreed on a deal that where, I mean, it's not going to come out what team, but where it could be. I'm wondering if it's the Red Sox. That sounds like a Heim Bloom kind of a thing where, oh, that guy, he was hurt. Oh, his value is down. I'm going to get that guy. I wonder, because Heim Bloom, what I like about Bloom is that, and I think you could appreciate this too, where he looks for value. And no pun intended there, but he really does look for the value, and he looks for like these low cost options where maybe they can tinker with them and get them on track and, get the most out of them. Perfect example, Nick Pivetta. So that to me, but he's also not afraid to go make a big move as well. Like Kyle Schwarber last year, drafting Blaze Jordan in the draft. Like that was like an electric pick. And it's like, so he has a knack for that. So I wonder if we end up getting Kumar Rocker. I don't know, man. Cause like he knows that they can go a little low on him, because where else is he going to go? Like he has no leverage. So I don't know, maybe Bloom, that's an over slot deal where he's like, hey man, tell all these other teams to go screw off and you're going to come to Boston. So
yeah,
I'm excited for the draft, and Kumar Rocker to me is the enigma of the draft. So
he's got real wide error bar on him, which isn't something you usually think about. Older college pitchers usually tend to think that they're, more of a complete product by that point. You kind of know who they are, but between his performance and his medicals and everything from last season, and it's got to be a pretty wide range on how teams are evaluating him.
And he looked good in that league too. He was pumping like high 90s. He had something with the shoulder, so I have to look out for that. But I don't know. I'm excited for it. There's a lot of fun players in this draft, and everyone in the chat, we got like 200 people. I will be live for the draft. We'll be reacting to every pick. I feel like it's not getting any hype this year. I think it was getting more hype the last couple of years because we had COVID 2 years ago, so it was the only thing that was on. And then last year, baseball was still kind of weird because no one was able to go to the game. So everyone was like, oh, draft. So this year, I'm not really hearing as much about it, but we're gonna be talking about it. Anyway, let's get back to the trades. Joe Girardi hater, thank you. Do appreciate that. Just making sure I didn't miss any. Oh no, we got one from right here. Skull TYA Catch 84. As a Twins fan, I only have faith in Jax, Thibaut, and Duran in the bullpen. How many relievers do you think they trade for? Who do you think is a good fit? I definitely think they could use a bullpen arm. Absolutely. I think they need to, because they have one of the lower ranked bullpens right now. In the last, let's see. Let's pull this up. Relievers. And my Red Sox just lost. You gotta love it. Minnesota in this season, they are 25th overall in Fangraph WAR. A 3.74 ERA, but a 4.07 FIP. Yeah, I don't know. Do you agree that they probably go after some bullpen?
Yeah.
Maybe a starter.
My old college roommate was a big Twins fan, and so I've still been pretty plugged into them. I still talk with him frequently, and he's sharing a lot of these sentiments that it's Jax, Duran, and a whole bunch of question marks down there. So we could talk for 20 minutes, half hour, whatever, about what the Twins, how aggressive they're going to be.
Yeah.
Whether they are going to go after a Montas Castillo type, or if they're just going to kind of make some marginal, since they didn't really, I don't know how much they expected to contend this year. Correa kind of fell into their laps, and now they're kind of playing house money.
Yeah.
So we can debate about how deep they're going to go in, whether they would trade an Austin Martin or a Jose Miranda for a big piece like that. But on the bullpen side of it, we're absolutely going to see some moves. I don't know if it's going to be kind of the fringy, hey, Steve Cishek's still got a 4 ERA. Let's see if he'll work out like
a Joe Mantiply. If there is one guy in the Diamondbacks, I wonder if they deal Mantiply. That is a guy I think could help out a lot of teams. That's a really good year, but no track record really. So no. More maybe the Diamondbacks want to hang on to him because he has a whole bunch of control, so they do have that leverage there for him. So we'll have to wait and see. But the Twins, either way, whatever the Twins end up doing, they're either going to lose in the wild card round or the division round. So it doesn't really matter because
get swept out of it, right? No wins.
They're gonna go up against the Yankees in the division round, and they're gonna get swept 3-0. So yeah, I picked the Twins I thought if there's any season the Twins could do it. 2020, the COVID championship, that was their year, and they blew it. And so, all righty, let's get back to it. We'll get back to the super chats later. Also, Jimmy Productions, the Giants should trade for Juan Soto. I think it'd be a good fit, but he's not going anywhere right now. I think he ends up signing an extension. What do you think?
That seems likeliest to me. I actually did a whole article on this a couple weeks ago about how he's
untradeable.
Right now. He's too valuable. He's too good. No team could put together a package for him and still feel okay about clicking accept,
Yeah. You'd have to give up the whole farm. Like,
exactly.
It's kind of funny, like, doing it. Like, but it's like, we're not going to give up Cassis, Bayo, Mayer, for Juan Soto. We're not going to do it.
For 2.5 years,
Yeah. So, we opened up with the Orioles, so we knocked out one, but let's fly through these here. We got Luis Castillo out there. Yankees and Dodgers showing some interest. The Yankees, to me, in my personal opinion, in my big video that I did about a week and a half ago, I had the Yankees just going after Luis Castillo. That's the piece. That's it. And yeah, sure, they could, we'll talk about Benintendi and Joey Gallo here in a little bit, but man, oh man, that feels like a move, like a checkmate kind of a move. But I am not surprised to see the Yankees in the rumor mill for him. They've been connected with him what seems like forever, as well as the Dodgers. I think both those teams make, obviously, a lot of sense. And actually, I feel like I saw this with Luis Severino.
Yeah, he got pulled early.
Headed for the getting an MRI due to shoulder tightness. So Brian Cashman better be calling the Cincinnati Reds right now. But there is some news out there on that where, let's share this screen here. Here we go. So on the New York Post from John Heyman. I didn't realize John Heyman, I'm just going to say this right now. I didn't realize he worked for the New York Post. I thought he was just on MLB Network. So
I think that was
kind of like weirded me out when I saw that. I'm like, what? So anyway, but the Yankees wouldn't mind another starter, and they do like Luis Castillo. But with the Reds requesting one of the top two shortstop prospects, Volpe or Peraza, they may end up settling for a depth piece instead. Like everyone else, they'll look at the bullpen, but with talented relievers, Jonathan Loaisiga and Zach Britton headed back to an already excellent pen. That's not a major need either. And we're also seeing that the Dodgers, where is my story? There was something here about Luis Castillo with the Dodgers. Here it was. It was John Morosi. John Morosi, Dodgers and Reds have had preliminary trade conversations about Luis Castillo. Many clubs showing interest. Dodgers are involved. So, immediate reaction. Do you feel like the Yankees or the Dodgers, one of those two teams, will end up with Castillo, or do you feel like absolutely could go to another team?
I would pretty heavily pick the Yankees there. It's kind of a new development for me. I was kind of hedging against the Yankees for a while there because they just, they get connected to every big name.
Yeah.
You got to kind of sift through which ones really make sense and which ones they can really, they're motivated to be the highest bidder for. This is that guy, I think.
Yeah.
You see the Reds asking for Volpe and Peraza. You see that kind of thing every time. They're always going to start at the very top and say, "Oh, we're not going to budge from your very, very best prospect." And then the deadline comes and it's closer and closer, and they sift past that stage, kind of.
Right.
So I'm not too worried about that end of it. But as far as the Yankees go, I think they need that front end arm. This is their year. They're pushing for it. They might not have Judge next year. They need that frontline arm, especially even before the Severino injury. You look at that rotation, and it's a rotation that didn't pitch all that much last season. You got a lot of guys heading toward innings pitched kind of thresholds that they haven't cleared in a couple years, and not a whole lot of reinforcements on the way. So I think Castillo makes tons of sense from that standpoint. And then also, their other options are Frankie Montas, but I think if the A's liked the Yankees prospects, Montas would already be on their team. The Yankees were a great fit for Montas, for Manaea, for Bassett, for Olsen, even for Chapman. We saw them talk about it a little bit, and none of those happened. And I think it's because the A's just aren't a huge fan of the guys the Yankees are willing to give up right now. So if you don't think they're going to line up, then okay, it's Castillo or Maile, and Tyler Maile has kind of a home run problem. I don't think that works out too well in New York. So
yeah,
Castillo just makes all the sense in the world. And we're going to talk later about some of the other needs in New York, some of the other needs on their roster. But I think starting pitcher is first and foremost. This is the year to push the chips in. Everything's lined up perfect. I am a little bit, I'm not going 100% because the Dodgers are scary. The Dodgers surprise me every deadline. They always have all the prospect talent to move for whoever. They always kind of zig when you expect them to zag kind of thing. There's the whole Scherzer Turner fake out last trade deadline with them going to the Padres, and then suddenly they're on the Dodgers. So I'm not counting them out at all, but I see too many signs pointing to Castillo to the Yankees to ignore it.
Right. And I'm because you said Castillo, he should be on the Yankees by now, right? Or not Castillo, sorry, Montas. Me and John were wondering this, because he was wondering, could this have been a guy that could have been moved, and maybe the A's just felt like, okay, they can hang on to this guy. But I was also speculating. I wonder if maybe there was something going on, with maybe some medical records or something, and they ended up having the shoulder issue. So maybe teams maybe they knew of something before because he had dealt with arm problems in the past. So maybe they were lowballing a little bit there. So the A's just thought, okay, let's just hang on to this guy. And then, we can end up selling high. But then we saw what happened with him last week, or with the shoulder. So, but it looks like he's going to be okay. We'll talk about him in just a second. But with the Yankees, like you said, I feel like they could have gotten him by now if they really wanted to, but they haven't. So I feel like, and Castillo is just a guy. They're never connected with Montas. If you're into the rumor mill and everything like that, you never hear the Yankees with Montas. You always hear them with Castillo. There's always a phone call here and there that happens. And I think Castillo's that guy. Now, Volpe, I'm going to say this right now. He's not going to be the guy. As you can see, $52.6 million of value. On the low end, he's 42.1. High end, 63. So either his lowest value is still higher than Castillo's median. So I don't see Volpe being moved. Now, Peraza is interesting. On the high end, he's worth 24. Low end, he's worth 16. So in the middle, 20. Do you feel like, because me and John, we've talked about where teams, they like to hug prospects now. Do you feel like the Yankees could end up parting with Peraza? Do you feel like they would go to that stretch to get Castillo for a year and a half?
Right now, I think they're kind of holding on to him. I think they're holding on kind of tight to him. He's performing pretty well in AAA, I believe. It's AAA. And right now, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is doing nothing for them. He's been a disappointment defensively. He's been kind of what we expected offensively, which is 20% below average.
Yeah.
And they need something there. We're going to talk about them more later, but there's no real options for them to go and get a shortstop on the trade market. Nothing that's really that much more attractive than what they have. So you have to think down the stretch, they're going to give Peraza a shot at least, if not Volpe as well.
Yeah.
And then longer term, LeMahieu's not going to keep this going for too many more years. So there you go. There's your two infielders to replace IKF and LeMahieu. So I think they're going to try their best to hang on to Peraza. I don't think he's going to be untouchable, but I think they'd rather – I think Pereira is one of the main names they'd like to move. I don't think Jason Dominguez goes anywhere because he's just so we talked earlier about the wide error bars on Kumar Rocker. He's that, but turned up to 11. Like there are so many varying reports on him. It's going to be really hard for two teams to line up on how they evaluate him and his value. So I think he's a little bit tougher. It might take Peraza to get the deal done realistically. And so if they are just gripping onto him, maybe that's kind of the crossroads, the impasse there. But I think they'll try to get it done without him and see if they can.
Well, I wonder if the Yankees, so the trade that I have pulled up here for the Yankees, they get Castillo. And then if they wanted to hang on to their top 5 prospect, well, actually top 4, Volpe, Peraza, Dominguez, and Wells, they would have to part with, because when you're looking at values, Waldichuk would be their highest valued pitcher in the minors. And then you would also have to part with Wesneski here. So they're 5, they're 7. And then also in this deal, I've put their number 10, Everson Pereira. And then their other infield prospect in here, Oswaldo Cabrera. Where did he go? The number 13. So I'm wondering if maybe the Yankees could try to tempt the Reds with a package like this. Like, okay, we won't give you Peraza, but we'll give you Cabrera and we'll give you our top 2 pitching prospects. So do you think this could be realistic, or I don't know, what do you think about this one?
I think it could. I like the names in there. I think they might opt to hold on to one of Waldichuk or Wesneski.
Yeah.
And then, Michael Shin mentioned something that I meant to mention earlier, so thanks to you, Michael. Oh, sorry. Michael Shin in the comments mentioned Will Warren. He mentioned Will Warren, who's a guy that reportedly they were scouting like a month ago. And so I think that's a smart name to pull up there. I don't, off the top of my head, know how much value he has. He might be kind of more of a 4th or 5th piece in the deal. Yeah,
1.8 value. So let's say you take out, let's take out Waldichuk, and because he is the. So if you were to hang on to your top 5, so you can hang on to him. So let's take him out. And then
I also
need to add something, but unless the red, because remember the numbers, yes, obviously they're a part here, but teams can value certain players at a higher price. So if they've been scouting someone like Will Warren, where if you look, he's having a pretty decent year in the minor leagues. AA, he's 8 starts, a 2.20 ERA. Not a whole lot of strikeouts when you look at the amount of innings pitched, but maybe the Reds like him. So, I mean, there's some other guys here like JP Sears. We've seen him actually in the majors. You got Justin Lang, who they got in the going blank. Wow.
Luke Voit.
Yes, Luke Voit. Thank you. My God. So, you got some other guys here maybe they could be interested in. So, but I think with this kind of a trade, you are on the right track. What do you think?
I think, yeah, you're getting there. And I think Austin Wells is a guy who shouldn't necessarily be viewed as untouchable. Yeah. There are some pretty big questions about whether he's going to stay behind the plate. Mm-hmm. And, if we get the automated zone in the next couple of years, that makes that a little easier. He doesn't have to worry about receiving, framing as much. But I think he's a guy they might be more willing to part with than the rest of their top 5 or 6 guys. Yeah. So I think, and he could be attractive to the Reds as, they have Stevenson, but he's been a little bit injury prone behind the dish. And so maybe they can get kind of a, Austin Wells backs up behind the plate some days, but plays first base, corner outfield other days, some sort of that plan going long term.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to mention is that the values for some of these top trade chips like Castillo, Montas, et cetera. Well, Montas is a little bit different because he's got the injury situation. But Castillo's value will likely come down just a hair between now and the actual deadline, because this current valuation has him for basically, the full 2 months of regular season that are remaining, plus the October bonus, giving he's going to be able to pitch for whatever team he goes to in the playoffs. And that's meaningful value that they'll be acquiring. So it's got that calculus. But as we get closer to the end of July, beginning of August, where the deadline is, obviously all of those July starts are in the rearview window. You're not trading for those anymore. So it'll creep down just a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see, but I definitely think the Yankees could get Castillo. I think we agree that they could get him without having to part with Volpe, Peraza, or Dominguez. Maybe you could put Austin Wells. I mean, if they would be willing to get Austin Wells, even if he doesn't end up as a catcher, he has been hitting well in the minor leagues this year, especially a 380 on base, 490 slugging, and 870 OPS overall. He's 8 home runs, 23 RBIs, also 9 stolen bases. I mean, at worst, you could see Austin Wells be like a left fielder / first baseman kind of a guy, where the bat will keep him in the lineup every day, and they'll just find a spot for him. And at the very worst, he can catch on some days. So I think I agree with you. I think Austin Wells. I think Yankee fans. I know my best friend is a Yankee fan, and I think he would be upset because he really likes Austin Wells. I do too. I thought he was a good hitter coming into the out of that draft. So it'd be tough to part with him, but I think if you could get someone like a Castillo, but then there's also, you could also try and get this guy signed up to an extension, just like the Blue Jays did with Barrios. So that's the one thing. And you got a whole year to kind of, get him to change his mind of testing free agency. So
I think
we'll have to wait and
getting
see.
a guy like that makes a lot of sense for them right now, given all the question marks they're going to have this upcoming.
Yeah, they're starting to show some cracks. Severino now, who knows what happens with him. I remember people were like, oh, the Yankees don't need pitching. They need to go get Benintendi. I'm like, oh, well, just wait and see, because, depth is a thing. Like, it's baseball. It's just how it is. It's the name of the game. But as for the Dodgers, they're definitely dangerous too. And you mentioned earlier how they got Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. Is it me or the Dodgers? Have they just been kind of quiet this year? I don't know. I feel like because the Yankees are just so good. The Mets are the Mets, the Mets are always fun to talk about, whether they're good or bad, but this year they're very good. So I feel like you're hearing a lot about the Mets this year. Now lately you're hearing about the Orioles a lot. I'm not hearing about the Dodgers all that much. I heard about Freddie Freeman a lot in the media with that whole thing, but a couple times, Mookie Betts will pop up there with a big night or something, but not hearing a whole lot about the Dodgers. I wonder, I think they could go either way. They have been making those big trades, Scherzer and Turner. Do they want to keep making those kind of deals? You know what I mean? Where they're like, okay, we've parted with some prospects in the last few years. Maybe we should tone it down. If you were to kind of lean one way, do you still think they're going to go after a big name guy? Or do you think maybe they hang back a little bit? What do you think?
I think they're always going to be after the big guys. I don't know if they're always going to get them. They can't afford to do that every year. Yeah. And this deadline, there isn't a Trey Turner type available. So you're really looking at Castillo and Montas, and then after that, it's more of the rental depth types and more of the question marks of whether they'll even be traded. Cedric Mullins, Bryan Reynolds, Pablo Lopez, those kind of guys who I personally don't think any of those guys get moved. So just to trade for them is probably going to cost you a premium to kind of pry them away from their other team. And the Dodgers aren't too interested in paying more than they have to for guys. So I think that you're going to see their name in the mix a lot. They're a very possible landing spot for Montas, I think, going back there. You might see them settle a little bit lower or identify one of their guys. Nobody expected much when they picked up Andrew Haney or when they picked up Tyler Anderson, and they've both been on the field. Both of those guys have been really effective for them this year. So I think you see something kind of like that. I think in a normal year, we're talking about the Dodgers a lot more. They are dominating their division. Yeah. And I think people have just kind of gotten tired of that. It's not exciting anymore. And B, you got the Astros and Yankees that are dominating their own divisions to an even greater extent. And so they're kind of overshadowing them. But they're still excellent. They're still the team to beat in the National League. Sorry, Braves fans. Sorry, Mets fans.
No, I agree. They're just a sound team. at the very least, they're gonna make it deep into the playoffs at the very least, or there'll be an extremely tough out in the division round. Like they're, no matter how you slice it, they're just a great team. But I am curious. I definitely think they could get me and John. We both agreed that Montas would be the guy that I feel like they could end up settling for, especially now with the shoulder issues, right? Where we could see his value possibly go down. And like you said, maybe they could settle. It's kind of weird you're saying with Frankie Montas, you're saying settle, but I feel like he is going to end up being a little cheaper than a Castillo now, just simply because of the question marks with the arm. But we do have, what a great segue. We do have an update on Frankie Montas, where it was looking not so great for Frankie Montas' trade market. And you're going to be thinking, man, the A's, why didn't you just get rid of him while you could? But we do have an update on him. Where the heck is the story? I cannot find it. Hold on one second. Frankie Montas. Here we go. Okay. Let's share the screen. Okay. So it was according to Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic. He was on it just today. So he tweeted out earlier in the day, attention deadline shoppers, Frankie Montas will return to the A's rotation this weekend. Sources tell the A's. Decision not made whether or not he will start Saturday or Sunday. Had tightness in his shoulder through a 25-pitch bullpen session yesterday. Went well. Then he tweeted again. How many hours? So, about a few hours after that. Change of plans. According to a source, Montas will not pitch this weekend. He has told the A's he wants to throw twice more inside sessions and then rejoin the team's rotation the first day out of the All-Star break. I mean, that sounds pretty smart, if you ask me. It sounds like Montas has the right view on it. I'm not sure why well, it's kind of funny because when you think about it, the A's, they probably want to get him out there, right? Because they're thinking, all right, we're not hanging on to this guy. So we want to get this guy pitching because we want to trade this guy. Then Montas is like, hold on a second, I don't think I'm ready. So I don't know. What do you kind of make of all this?
I think they all have the same idea in mind, the A's and Montas himself, right? There's no secret here. He's one of the last couple guys. The team is horrendous. He's a great guy. I've watched him plenty. I'm somewhat of an A's fan. Don't need to get into that. Yeah. But I've watched him plenty. He's a great guy. I don't think he has any ill will against the team. I think he enjoys some of the people there and everything. Yeah. But he knows it's time to get out of there. The ship has already sunk and he's stuck on it and he needs someone to rescue him. So he knows that whatever will get him onto a contender is going to be what's best for him right now. And obviously the team knows that too. If they can trade him this deadline, then they're trading him to a team for a year and a half of team control for potentially 2 postseasons. Yeah. They're going to get a much larger return this month than they would get if they waited until the offseason again. Yeah. So they're all lined up here. It's just balancing. Yes, we need to show other teams that he's healthy, and also we need him to be healthy. We don't need to take any risks and have him actually out for an extended period of time because we rushed him back out there. So I do also want to point out that to an extent, it might decrease his value a little bit, but unless it is something that absolutely just shelves him for the rest of the year or for a month or whatever the case is, to an extent, other teams that are interested in him are kind of have to take what they can get. Yeah. Just because it's so thin at the top of the market this year. There's Castillo, who we talked about at length, and even he started the year on the injured list. I believe it was a shoulder issue for him as well. I might be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But he had injury issues to start the year. Montas, these shoulder issues right now. And Tyler Mahle is on the injured list with shoulder issues right now as well. And after that, it's a huge drop off. So every team needs pitching. I could go down a list of 10 contenders that truly need a frontline starting pitcher, and not all 10 of them can get one because there aren't 10 available. So someone's going to have to be okay with, a guy who's got a barking shoulder and may not be 100%. He might be 90% and require some sort of attention in the offseason.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it here, where I see Castillo, John actually he was talking about this last week, and I thought he made a really good point where Castillo has kind of been viewed more as like that ace, right? Like he has more of that flashiness to him, while Montas, he's never really had that big old track record as like a Luis Castillo. Where when I heard John say that, I started thinking, okay, I wonder if Castillo ends up with more of a big market team. I think Montas could definitely end up with the Dodgers, absolutely. Geographically, that would also make a lot of sense. Would not take him very long to go get to LA, but I also wonder if he ends up with a mid-market team, because we did mention, maybe that value could come down a little bit. How much, I don't know, but maybe a little, where maybe a mid-market team could jump in. Like the Twins, if you take a look in the last couple of weeks, they only ranked 29th in starting pitching, 5.49 ERA, 5.77 FIP. Maybe a team like the Cardinals, 1-6 with their starting pitching in the last couple of weeks. Not great numbers either. I wonder about a team like the Cardinals, who you never know what's going on with Jack Flaherty. I know Montas has also had shoulder issues here, so would the Cardinals even want to play around with that? But I wonder if a team like the Cardinals or the Twins have always been a pretty popular partner when it comes to a Montas trade, especially on the website, on the simulator. I don't know, if you were to kind of pick maybe some teams, what do you think what would be a good fit for Montas in your personal opinion?
Those are two really good calls. I think the Cardinals, they kind of have a similar, not to the same extent as the Yankees, but a similar scenario there where they talked a lot in the offseason and they weren't able to agree on anything. And so it makes you question if there's just kind of an impasse there, if it's not going to happen between those two teams. And they're the Cardinals. They pick up guys who are not. They picked up J-Happ and John Lester last deadline and made them both from two of the worst pitchers into the league, and suddenly they were like perfectly average fourth and fifth starters for them down.
And their defense just picked them up completely.
Yeah. So I wonder if even another A's starter, Paul Blackburn, might make a lot of sense.
Man, you read my mind in the video that I did. That Paul Blackburn was the guy for that I wanted for the Cardinals.
And he had a really rough start for the A's tonight. It's always felt like smoke and mirrors. He doesn't miss too many bats. He kind of needs a good defense behind him, and he doesn't have one of those in Oakland, but he would in St. Louis.
Yes.
So I wonder if he's maybe a better fit or just another, Jose Quintana, lower end type guy.
Quintana could be a good one too. Yeah. I feel like that's probably where that's where the Cardinals end up. Maybe someone like, like a $5 to $10 million value kind of a guy, where I could think. Then that's where the Twins, they could maybe jump in and they can maybe throw some prospects, because the Twins.
I love the Twins as a fit. I for sure thought it was happening in the offseason.
Me too.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how acquainted you are with Twins Twitter, but there were plenty of memes about where Frankie and all that. Yeah. I thought it was going to happen. I still think it could. What made a lot of sense to me back then was Montas for a package centered around Austin Martin. And since then, both of their values have declined at kind of the same rate. So it still kind of works out. Martin isn't hitting for much power. He's kind of losing some of that shine that he had as I believe, a first overall pick or fifth, top five, I know at least.
Yeah.
He's losing some of that shine. And, Montas, he's having a shoulder injury. It's a half season less of team control. But I think it lines up pretty well. And the Twins have plenty of depth all around their offense. He doesn't really have a true position. He'd be kind of a hovering around kind of guy for them, a super utility type, but he'd find somewhere to play with the A's. So I think that kind of deal would make sense. A couple other teams, just to name a couple off. The Mets, I know we talked about the big market kind of aspect of it, but the Mets are losing a lot of starting pitching this offseason to free agency. They're losing Bassett. They're losing maybe Carrasco. I'd have to double check on that, but they're losing DeGrom potentially. And so you figure Montas may be a guy that they bring in just to have that extra security for next season, and they don't have as much pressure to re-sign some of these guys. Or we saw the White Sox connected to them earlier, and that one's a bit of a tougher fit just because they don't really have the quality of prospect that it might take, and they've been in such a downward spiral this season. They're not in a great spot to make a big trade like that. yeah, I'd probably say the Twins, Dodgers, and Mets would be maybe my top 3 for him. And then there's 3 or 4 other teams after that are possibilities, but probably won't have him at the top of their shopping list.
Yeah, when I'm looking at a Twins trade right here, I got 2 guys here, like you mentioned, Austin Martin. We got Cantorino as well. That would be their 2. And Cantorino, number 5. So you are giving up 2 guys in the top 5. But when you look at the values, really brings them pretty close together. One more guy, value-wise, gets this done. So
what's Matt Wallner's value looking like?
3.
There it is.
Look at that. Done deal. Couple of outfield. Well, Martin can basically. I think Martin's going to be like that super utility guy.
Yeah.
But another outfielder, another pitcher. I think it's a done deal. I got the Twins getting Montas, but I think the Dodgers are always dangerous. We'll have to wait and see. But let's move off of Montas here. We were at, actually, we had a super chat that I think would segue very nice into our next story. Where is it? We have a couple of super chats here. Let's get one from Jimmy Productions. The Orioles should trade for Alberto Mondesi and Benintendi or Taylor and Brad Keller. I wonder if like I said, the Orioles, if they needed anything, it was offense. So I wonder, but then again, will they be weirded out by the whole Toronto thing with, being vaccinated or whatever? But, with Benintendi, man, if they could get a bat like him, that'd be great. But I think the Orioles, I wonder if they do end up doing like a rental, where it won't really cost them a whole lot of their, I could see them going either way, where maybe if they do make a trade, it's a guy that they know they'll have for the next couple of years, or they do a rental, someone that's not going to cost a whole lot, like someone like Benintendi, probably around like $5 million or so, right? 5.7.
I believe he's 9.3.
9.3. Okay, so but he's not going to cost more than 10. Maybe he might be a little out of that for them, but maybe. Michael Taylor, he has another year of control. Michael Taylor, yes. I think. Yeah, so maybe someone like him. He's never really been known for his offense, but he's having a good year at least.
I really like the Brad Keller call. That's
me too. It just sounds right. It just has a nice little ring to it. I don't know. So
he's got another year and a half. Right. He's kind of that 4th, 5th starter, and maybe that makes him more attractive to a team that really needs the innings eaten right now. And so maybe somebody else pays just a little bit more that Baltimore can't. But that is good. The kind of guy. He's young, but he has that experience. Maybe you do lock him up to an affordable 3-4 year deal. It's nothing sexy, but it's interesting.
He has been good lately too. He's brought his ERA down to 3.96. FIP is at a 4.22, which is around league average. That's a kind of guy and he's a free agent, he's not a free agent for after a couple more years. So that is a guy I think absolutely. I like that out of all those. Could you maybe do a package of Benintendi and Keller, maybe somehow, some way? If it got him Keller, maybe they'd be willing to take on someone like Benintendi if it helped him for the second half, possibly. That'd be pretty nice. We'll have to wait and see. A couple more here. Let's do this one that will segue into our next story here. Joey Gallo would be a great ad for the Giants. I do feel like the Giants could use some offense. The Giants are such a confusing team to me because it's like I feel like they had fun with the whole platoon thing, and now I feel like they just have like a million platoons, and now
they made the whole team out of platoon. And
it's like I don't know. It's like they had Bryan last year. It's like when you look at the lineup, you got like some like Crawford's not having a great year. I think Bell has been okay. I can't remember his numbers off the top of my head, but these are guys that are not getting any younger by any means. But I look at the lineup, and there's not like that one guy. I don't think Joey Gallo is going to fix any of their issues, but the Giants are weird to me. Like I don't know what it is. It feels like I don't know. They're just all over the place. I don't know what's going on. I love the starting pitching, and it's great. But Joey Gallo, I think he's an interesting name to be on the lookout for. I don't know. What do you think about a Giants fit?
That's terrifying. I feel like Gallo would go to the Giants and hit like 280. just because it's the Giants, because it's Farhan, right? They get something out of him.
That's what I wonder, like from a philosophical standpoint, where Giants are like, yeah, we can get something out of this guy. We've worked with guys before, and they made one trade earlier. It was kind of an under the radar move. Brought in Taveras from the Rangers, Willie Taveras, right?
Willie Calhoun.
Sorry,
Willie Calhoun.
Oh, Calhoun. I'm thinking Willie Taveras. Never mind. Yeah, Calhoun. Good call. But yeah, they brought him in where they're thinking, maybe we can work with something with this guy. We see some things, maybe tinker something here and there. But wonder if Gallo and left-handed bat, got the water out there. Could be fun. I'm not necessarily against that.
And he's such a good defender and like versatile player, kind of. You don't really think of Joey Gallo as versatile because you think of the strikeouts, right?
Yeah.
But he's a good defender. He's a better athlete than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ground out there to cover in center field. You figured kind of got a high floor with him. He's going to walk, he's going to hit some homers, and he's going to play solid center field defense in a tough park to play it in. If he really hits, then boom, that's a huge boost to your lineup. If he doesn't, you haven't lost a whole lot and you didn't really give up much to get him. So that wasn't on my radar, but I don't hate that fit.
Jimmy Productions, man, he's always coming through. It was funny because in the last year when I'm going to show some love here to Jimmy Productions, where I speculate when the Yankees traded for IKF and Donaldson, I'm thinking like, why are the Twins, because they had just traded for IKF. So I'm like, why are they trading him? I'm like, that, because I'm like, that's great. Hey, good, solid move. They got themselves a nice shortstop, and then they traded him to the Yankees. And I'm like, what are they doing? I'm like, wait, are they going to go get like Correa? Speculating. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I think Jimmy Productions, I remember he sent in a super chat or something at one point saying like, yeah, I think they're going to go get Correa. And then 2 a.m. and signed, and I'm like, what the heck? And then he was there in the stream. He's like, I told you. And I'm like, oh my God. But hey, maybe that's kind of one of those interesting fits where, even like a team like the Rays, where they could, I don't think they would trade with the Rays with Gallo. That would be the worst nightmare. But yeah, that send him far away, get him out of there, but to a team where maybe they can fix something with him. But there have been some rumors out there. Let me just pull it up here. Let's share the screen. But let's talk a little Joey Gallo here. So it's looking like the Yankees maybe wanting to move on from Joey Gallo, showing some interest in Andrew Benintendi, as well as David Peralta. That's another name to look out for. So let's share the screen here, and let's take a look at the story. Also, John Heyman on this. So Yankees holding talks about acquiring Andrew Benintendi, dealing Joey Gallo. As a Red Sox fan, this would be an absolute nightmare. I would hate to see Andrew Benintendi in a Yankee uniform. But the fact that they have supposedly held some talks while also dealing away Joey Gallo, I think it makes a lot of sense because, in my opinion, I think a lot of people would agree. It just seems like Gallo is just lost in New York. He's one of these players there where someone like Matt Carpenter went to New York and he's thriving, but then someone like Gallo, where he goes there, the Yankees can go either way. They either get some of these guys and they get a ton out of them, or they get a good guy and then they get a nothing burger out of this guy. And Gallo is unfortunately Mr. Nothing Burger over here. I don't know. What are your overall thoughts on Gallo, and then them going to a different, going down a different route in terms of outfield?
I think it would be pretty surprising if Gallo made it through this deadline with the Yankees.
Yeah.
And if he does, it means that he's just kind of a bench guy for them down the stretch because they required someone else to kind of bump him to that role, which, for a contender, it's not the worst role to have him in. You can kind of pick his spots, make sure he goes in against pitchers that are more favorable. And like I said, he's a decent defender.
Yeah.
But I think it just makes more sense to find him a new home. There's a handful of teams that would be, they don't want to break the bank for an outfielder, but they'd take a chance on him. I believe his value is around like 3 right now.
Right.
So that's super affordable if we're talking about the Giants. I know the Padres and Rangers have both been connected to him. I don't get the Rangers too much. Padres, I know their fans are so not on board with it.
They were at one point
last
year or whatever it was.
that they're not on board with it really right now.
Yeah.
I could see it if they also got another guy like Santander, like Benintendi, that was a little bit more contact oriented. It makes it a little easier to add a Gallo to that lineup. But, someone in this chat mentioned the Brewers. That's not a horrible fit. They've had some disappointing production out of their outfield this year, their offense in general, but especially their outfield. So there's a handful of teams that make sense for him. As far as the Benintendi fit, I don't know if you want to get into that right now.
Yeah, sure.
Even before today's news about his vaccination status and kind of the restrictions that would be imposed on him if he were to be traded to the AL East, even before that news, I didn't love the fit. It looked pretty clear. It looked like a decent fit about a month ago, but now Aaron Hicks is on fire out of nowhere.
And he's been a good on base guy for them all year.
Yeah, but now he's really getting some power. I think he's rated really well defensively out in the outfield as well. Mm-hmm. And so you got 3 really solid outfielders there. I mean, you're gonna have to DH Stanton pretty frequently, so maybe it's not 3 complete outfielders that you feel confident running out there every day. And Judge has had his injury concerns, and so has Hicks, obviously. So maybe it's not 3 guys you're comfortable just running out there every single day the rest of the season. But I honestly, if we're talking about Kansas City outfielders, I think Michael Taylor's a better fit for them. Now, he has the same issue, unfortunately, which I fully didn't expect coming into today. But he was also placed on the restricted list by the Royals today, so he'd also be kind of out of it for any future series in Toronto, which even could include the playoffs, which could be huge.
Yeah, and you were right about Aaron Hicks as well. Just wanted to jump in. So far, Aaron Hicks in the month of July, 275 WRC plus, hitting 370 with a 485 on base, 889 slugging. Look at that OPS in the month of July, halfway through, a 1374. So, I think the Yankees, I think it's appropriate for them to kick tires on Benintendi. But at the end of the day, I mean, with Hicks, I mean, it never hurts to, you can shuffle these guys around. At least, with Benintendi, Hicks, yes, defensively has been pretty solid. But with Benintendi, you will also get a solid glove. So I don't know. Could they do some kind of like a rotation sort of a thing? I don't know. I don't know how they do that, but it would be interesting. Now, I kind of agree with you though. It's you got to move some pieces around to make it work. So
it's funny. A guy like Brett Gardner would be a pretty good fit for their team.
I know, right? I wouldn't be surprised. He just shows up. That guy could literally sign right now and he'll play tomorrow. Like he's basically that kind of a player. So we'll have to wait and see. I definitely think Joey Gallo, in a way, I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to the Rangers because the Rangers are thinking, all right, well, he did good here. We can bring him back for cheap. We know what to do with him. We can work with him. It's not going to cost us any big prospects. In a way, like I could see it just because he's not going to be expensive. They had to, and they ended up getting a lot out of him or getting a lot for him. So, in a way, it's like, yeah, we'll take him back. That just means we obviously won that trade. Yeah. So, I could see that. I think Jimmy Productions mentioned, like Giants would be a fun fit. I think Joey Gallo to the Brewers could be fun. I'll have to wait and see on that. We'll have to wait and see. David Peralta, that was another guy mentioned here. I think he's also interesting where he's having a pretty solid year. I think he's in the same boat as Benintendi. I think, does he have another year of control?
No.
After the season, he's in the same boat, basically. I feel like Benintendi would be option A, and then Peralta is the next domino to fall if a team is still looking for some outfield help. So any thoughts on Peralta at all?
I actually have Peralta kind of in a similar basket to Trey Mancini. It's not to the same extent, I don't think, but his value is very low.
Yeah.
He's not really a difference maker on the field, and he's not going to bring the D-backs too much back in a trade, but he's been a fan favorite. He spent his whole career there. He's a cool story. He was a pitching prospect converted to an all-star quality outfielder. I don't know if he was ever made the all-star team. But I think he's a guy, like you said with Marte earlier, he's a guy who sells tickets, sells jerseys in Arizona, and might just finish out his career there because is it really worth the $2 million that the D-backs would save and the AAA reliever that would flame out? And
you got to look at it from that point of view.
I'm not putting any money on that or anything. Like it's a pretty weak outfield market, and there's a few teams that need outfielders, so it makes sense somebody might take a chance.
In Arizona, I've never been to the stadium, but like the Rays, like when you go to the stadium at Tropicana, they got banners with like players, like pictures on them. Do the Diamondbacks have something similar like that? Like, do they have stuff of like Peralta, like outside?
They do, like kind of around the stadium, outside, like on the concourses. Yeah, I haven't.
That always says something to me. Like the organization, like that's like a guy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
he's just fans like to. Oh, cool, David Peralta's here. So
Peralta and Marte are those two big guys for them.
Yeah. I could see them. He's a veteran guy, and the Diamondbacks want to compete. I could see them signing him to like you mentioned. Trey Mancini, very similar, like 2-3 year extension, something like that. He's a veteran guy. He's someone that he's not bad to have around. Like he's not taking anything away. He's just going to be a solid player for you. I could see him signing some kind of an extension, but we'll have to wait and see. I definitely think out of those three guys, funny enough, I think Joey Gallo is the one that is most likely. I think Benintendi will get moved, but I mean, Gallo is the one that I absolutely think will. But then again, I wouldn't be surprised too if he ends up staying. Is it, could end up being that guy. Watch postseason comes. Gallo's had a bad season, and he ends up coming up in like a big way in like the postseason. Yep. JD Drew reminds me of JD Drew of the Red Sox so much. Terrible 2007, comes up big in the playoffs. Grand Slam, Game 6 against the Indians. Now the Guardians, rest in peace. But kind of, I wonder if that could end up happening. We'll have to wait and see. We got another super chat here before we quickly move on. This was actually pretty funny. I highlighted it earlier. Shaq Fu Guru Gallo will mash with his beard back. I'm telling you, I think that does something to guys. As a guy that has a beard, and you as well. I mean, I feel like a giant baby if I have no beard. That would get to me, man.
Baby face under here. It's horrible.
Yeah, like I will look like a giant baby. I can't get rid of this thing. Joe Hill. Chris Illich famously said, the rebuild is 100% over. What moves do you think the Tigers do? It's funny because I'm looking at the Tigers and what they could possibly do in the draft this coming weekend. I'm pretty curious to see who they end up taking at number 12. But yeah, I just think the Tigers kind of the same boat as the Orioles. They're just not there in the same spot in the standings. I still think both organizations are right there on the same path. Like, obviously the Orioles are ahead in the standings, but the one guy I wonder, when they brought in Chafin, I wonder if they thought, okay, let's bring in Chafin. That's going to help the bullpen. And if it doesn't work out, we could just trade him. I think a lot of teams, they bring in guys knowing that they could maybe trade him too, So I don't know. What are you feeling with Chafin?
He's one of the top relievers that projects to be available if you're not talking about, the David Bednars.
Yeah.
It's him. Michael Fulmer's another one in that bullpen. They could think about Gregory Soto. I haven't seen his numbers lately, but I know he had a bit of a rough start to the season.
Yeah. He's doing pretty good. He just made the All-Star team.
There you go. But they have some relievers to move. A lot of things have gone wrong for the Tigers this year.
Yeah.
Torkelson hasn't really turned it on yet. I still believe in him 100%, but he hasn't quite gotten there. Obviously, there's the whole Eduardo Rodriguez situation, which
I know, man.
He was supposed to be a big part of that team, and instead he's been not on the team.
Yeah.
So they have, the usual rental types they can move. Michael Pineda, Robbie Grossman. I would say Jonathan Scope, but they've seemed to have been addicted to him these last handful of years. They keep bringing him back, so maybe they just hang on to him still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I anticipate a fairly quiet deadline for the Tigers. They'll move some of those rental types. I don't think they make any of those potentially aggressive moves.
Yeah.
I think they need to wait until the end of the season, see what they have with Rodriguez and Torkelson and Green and some of these other guys. Badu had a horrible start to the year. I think they need to see how their second half goes and kind of reassess in the offseason.
Yeah, it's funny with the Tigers because I did a video. I did an MLB The Show rebuild with the Tigers. And that first year, it was so bad. Like I did a 3-year rebuild. The first year I just simulated through, and horrible record. And then Torkelson was like so bad in that simulation. I'm like, man, really? Like, and it's so funny, like looking at the numbers with Torkelson right now, and then how they were on MLB The Show. It was like, I remember thinking when I saw them, I'm like, there's no way he's going to hit that bad. And it's like, whoa, MLB The Show, you might be onto something. That's pretty wild. But yeah, I think the Tigers they're a team to look out for in the offseason. I think Baez was like that first piece for them, and they made a couple other little moves as well with Rodriguez. I wouldn't say that was little, but Chafin, as well. They're going to be a dangerous team, and I wonder if they jump back in. I don't know. I wonder if they jump back in with Correa, and then, you could move Baez to second or something. I don't know. I wonder. I think they're going to be dangerous in the offseason. Like you said, I think more rental, small moves. I don't think they do anything big. But, yeah, Grossman's interesting too. That's another one. So, really quick, just want to make sure. Nope, I think we are good with the Super Chats. Let's move on here to our next story. Only got a couple more here. We won't spend too much longer. We were just talking about the Dodgers and the Giants earlier with Joey Gallo. How about Brandon Drury? Dodgers and the Giants showing some interest in Brandon Drury. I think this is one of the more underrated guys on the trade market. I really like what he's doing this year. He has the bat this year. Good amount. To me, I couldn't believe that. I don't know. Has he been added to the All-Star game in the last couple of days? I
don't think so.
I don't know. I think he ended up. Yeah, he's not on. But that to me, Castillo was the guy that went for the Reds. And I'm thinking like, man, I feel like Drury should be the guy that's representing the Reds. If you were to pick someone, but Castillo, he's got that name value. So what can you do? But I don't know. But Brandon Drury. So what did I just say? Brandon. What did I just say? My goodness. Time for bed. But Brandon Drury, I think he is a valuable piece out there because he has that versatility. He has the bat. So to me, no surprise, especially with the Dodgers, with Chris Taylor hurt. Who knows how long he's going to be out? They've been having some other injuries too. And the Giants, it just feels like, what the heck's going on with the Giants? I feel like these two teams would be appropriate for him. And the good thing about him is he's not really going to cost all that much. So kind of where, do you think he is, if I were to ask you, do you think he's a big deal on this trade market? Do you think he's going to be an impactful guy? Or do you feel like, whatever, he'll go somewhere and probably not do all that much?
So I think he's a bigger deal than most people think. I'm not going to say he's going to be breaking any big news. Sell the farm for him kind of guy. But I'm really glad we're talking about him. I actually just wrapped up and posted a kind of a full trade deadline or primer article on baseball trade values. And I kind of ran down, the way you usually see it, running down some of the top available players on the market, and I'm rolling through them, section by section. And then at the end of it, I kind of put together, others of note. And it's just all the, onesie twosie, really low value type guys, Drew Smyly, Sean Doolittle, Tucker Barnhart, these guys that are going to be traded for next to nothing, those kind of guys. And one of the guys I had in that section originally was Brandon Drury. And then I thought about it a little more and I said, no, we need to talk about Brandon Drury. So he's at 4.9 million in median trade value, which is not nothing. I mean, it's still not getting you a big name in return, but it's getting you something. And for a guy that was signed to such a cheap deal, it might have even been a minor league deal. It was either that or just a very low value major league deal. That's exactly what a team like the Reds wants to get out of those guys. I know they also signed Donovan Solano and Colin Moran to similar type deals, and they didn't really pan out, but Drury's a big hit. So kudos to the Reds. They've made a lot of questionable decisions the last year or so, but this was a good one. As far as teams that might fit, I do like both the Dodgers and the Giants. He feels like a Giant already. He's that same kind of matchups, plays all over the field. Yeah, he's that kind of guy. The Mariners also stand out to me. They've had some infield issues, and he could play a couple different spots there. Maybe the Mets. He was with the Mets last year, and he was kind of more of a bench piece, pinch hitter for them, and he was actually pretty good. And we know they're looking to add a bat, and he can kind of play all over. So maybe there as well. He fits on a lot of teams because this season he's played every infield position, and last season he played the corner outfield as well. So he's going to be everywhere except for center field, catcher. You probably don't want him playing shortstop, but he can.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
One team I got for you. How about the Tampa Bay Rays?
There you go.
How about the Tampa Bay Rays? You just lost out on Wander Franco. He's going to be gone for a little bit. Yes, they're kicking my Red Sox's pineys all over the place, but that's a team where they've been having some injuries. He can move around. You got Taylor Walls at short right now, Yandy Diaz at third, but it's the Rays. They can move guys around, and that's a guy that can move around. And their offense was getting hot there for a little bit. Obviously Isaac Paredes was just mashing all over the place. He's cooled off a little bit over the last week, but Harold Ramirez, as you can see here, the last 7 days, ranking 10th in the power rankings among hitters. Yandy Diaz has been hot too, but the Rays offense definitely was heating up, but again, got some guys on the IL. If we take a look at their injury report right now, Mike Zunino has been out pretty much what feels like all year. Kiermaier just went back on the IL, and then Franco was the big one. So I wonder if that could end up. I mean, look at all these injuries they got. Yeah. That is just nuts. Like, my goodness, Margot, Lau, that's crazy, man. So
they're another team that wouldn't be a horrible fit for Benintendi if it made sense in the division, and it just doesn't. They're going to have to go to Toronto.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be the biggest. I can't think of the term with Benintendi. The biggest outlier, kind of a. Yeah. I can't think of the term exactly, but you know what I mean? Like, where
I know what you're going for, yeah.
Yeah, like that's that wild card where another team can jump in and be like, oh, okay, let's go after him. But yeah, I like Brandon Drury a lot. I think he makes sense for the Dodgers, especially with Chris Taylor out. Not sure what the timetable is, but I think he has a fractured foot, if I remember that correctly. But that's never a good thing to have as a baseball player. So Drury would make a lot of sense for them. The Giants, yeah. Could you go back to the Mets possibly? Sure, absolutely. I had the Angels as a team. If they were to buy, oh my goodness, we're just all about the segues tonight. We might as well talk about that next. But the Angels I have as a team, if they were to buy, that could be a team where it doesn't look like a great fit right now with where they're at in the standings. But if they were to somehow, some way get hot, it wouldn't cost a lot to add him, but he would help, I would say. But let's talk about the Angels really quick. Let's talk about them. Do you think the Angels buy or sell? We're starting to see the media jump in about the Angels. What the heck are they going to be doing? Even I always help me with the GM's last name. Is it Minasan?
Minazian?
Minazian?
I am no better than you in this category. I butcher names left and right.
Let's just whatever. We're good. Let's just call him Perry. How about that?
Yes.
Perry Minazian. I don't know. Let's just call him Perry. But he's saying here, we're still too far out to make decisions as far as concrete decisions. But I'm realistic too. We're not in the position we were a month and a half ago, but there's still time to go before we have to make a concrete decision to go one way or another. I think you look at everything. Buy, sell, long-term. We might be in a bad spot, but there might be a long-term buy where we trade prospects for a guy with control. I don't think you shut anything out. Honestly, for a generic answer, I think that's actually I like that he said the one part, if you can go out and get someone with control. I don't know. That's to me, the fact that he even said that makes me wonder if that's what they're trying to do. So maybe Drury won't really fit that mold, but I think it's really interesting. I did a video on should the Angels trade Ohtani. I put up some different scenarios with, most likely none of them are going to happen because it's just ridiculous to even think of Ohtani in a trade. And I think he's around like $100 million worth of value. Yeah. So he's one of those guys where like a Juan Soto, it just almost feels I don't know, especially because he only has like one more year of control. It's like, it's not worth it. So you're better off probably just waiting until he gets to free agency and whatever. And then because I put teams that could possibly convince him to sign an extension. So like teams like the Giants, the Dodgers, could you imagine him going to the Dodgers? My God, Artie Moreno would lose his mind. the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Giants, the Cubs, teams like that where maybe they could get him to an extension. But obviously, I don't think Ohtani's going anywhere. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, you're not moving on from Trout. But if I were to pull up the Angels right now, Syndergaard is the guy. If you were to move on from someone, Syndergaard is the free agent. You got Lorenz in there too. I think Bradley's out for a little bit. But those are the two guys that jump off the screen. I don't know. If you're to lean one way, what are you thinking here of the Angels?
So I think they have every incentive because of Trout and Ohtani. They have every incentive to at least hold.
Yeah.
They might not go out there and, trade for a Montas, who I thought he made sense for them in the offseason, and the A's have never been really afraid of trading within the division. So I thought he made sense for them in the offseason, but probably not so much right now, I don't think, unless, they could get hot. There's like 3 weeks left between now and the deadline.
Yeah.
That's more than enough time.
The Orioles and the Mariners,
yeah. If they go 12-5, 15-4, I don't know how many games they have left, but if they win a good number of games, then we're talking about them in a completely different way. But they're on the lower mark there of those bubble teams where it's like, it could go either way. It depends how they play. Like, they have a lot of ground to make up. But because they have Trout and Ohtani there, and because they're running out of time with Ohtani, I think they, at worst, they hold, maybe trade a reliever or two kind of thing. Maybe trade Matt Duffy. Is he even healthy? I don't know. But
yeah, I feel like I haven't heard. I think he's on the IL.
Yeah, but Syndergaard is tough. Syndergaard is really the big question mark for me, not because necessarily he's so important to them down the stretch, but it's kind of an admission of failure if you trade Noah Syndergaard, right? He's the big name you brought in to stabilize the rotation, and he was going to make it work. And, they've nickeled and dimed on the Matt Harveys and Trevor Cahills and all those other guys the last few years, but we got a big guy, and, it's a shorter term contract, but we got a guy. And if you're trading him, it's like, well, didn't work. Cool. And because his contract is so unique, because it's such a high value for the 1 year, he doesn't really have a lot of surplus value. I believe it's right around 3 or 4 million. And that's just not gonna, he's at 3.7 right now. And so you're not going to get much for him unless you eat some of that contract. And who knows, maybe that makes sense to them. But at just a few million like that, you might as well just ride it out, especially because here's another guy that's kind of reaching a soft innings limit kind of thing. He didn't pitch at all the last year. And did he pitch in 2020? I don't remember. But he doesn't have many miles on his arm recently coming off the big injury. So, I mean, how long can a team that's acquiring him expect him to hold up? Is he going to be available for them in October when he's already thrown 160, 170 innings during the season? Who knows?
Yeah.
So if you're not going to get much for the guy and you just have so much incentive to put everything you can toward winning for the next year and a half while you still have Ohtani, maybe it makes sense to hang on to him. And maybe, you're trading Duffy if he gets healthy in time, or you're trading Aaron Loop, or some of these other lower tier guys that really aren't going to move the needle too much for you. It's a horrible position that the Angels have quite literally put themselves in. So not a whole lot of sympathy for them as a team, but it's not an enviable one, because I don't think they can really, unless they just go crazy hot these next couple weeks, I don't think there's any moves they can make that really move the needle in either direction for them in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, the only team, and there was another team in that video I mentioned as well, the Padres, could you imagine? I mean, I know this is completely just, this is bar talk right now. This is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you were to take on, like, I don't know, like a negative contract and like pair Hosmer with someone like Big Abrams, I'm thinking backwards on this. Never mind. Nope. Do not ignore what I was saying. Sorry. I was thinking backwards on that. I don't know, but the Padres could be an interesting one if you were to somehow have a trade partner. But either way, Abrams would be a guy, he would make up a lot of value there. So, but then again, it's like, do the Padres want to do that? I don't think so. So It'd just be way too difficult to trade Ohtani at this point. And like you said, there's really no point. But what I was thinking a second ago is you pair Ohtani with like a Rendon or something. That's where I was getting at. Completely backwards. It's almost time for bed. But yeah, I think the Angels, like you said, you got to stand pat. I don't really see a point in you built up this team. You got to try and fix it. I think they could use a break, all-star break, try and get your act together, mentally as well. And just go for it in the second half and see what you can do. The Orioles have shown right here, one winning streak gets you into it. So the Mariners right back in it. The Mariners have a wild card spot right now. So anything can happen. But we had a couple of super chats here before we get to our last couple of stories. Let me see here. We had StreamYard is difficult sometimes because I'll be looking and it doesn't show all of the super chats and it's like weird. And then I end up like missing one. Here we go. Julio Rodriguez, rookie of the year. Julio Rodriguez, home run derby. This home run derby, so to get off track here, I know we're talking trades and everything. This is looking like kind of a fun home run derby this year. You got Jose Ramirez like just entered. And you got Julio Rodriguez makes it fun. Like, I feel like you don't ever see rookies in it.
Not often.
I can't. Was Griffey in it as a rookie or A-Rod? I'm trying to think. Maybe Griffey? I could be wrong. Let me pull up the field here.
Off the top of my head, I can't come up with any rookies.
I can't think of a rookie. I think Julio Rodriguez, let's see. Trying to etch his way into the record book. No. I feel like they would say it here. Oh, here we go. Okay, they have a whole list right here. Here are the rookies that have competed in the home run derby. Yeah, Cody Bellinger. That was one. So Cody Bellinger back in 2017. Yeah, Vlad Jr. just a couple of years ago. Yeah. So Pete Alonso was a rookie as well. Yeah. Okay. What the heck am I thinking?
There's a few.
Yeah, these guys completely went blank on me. Alonso and Vlad, and then Bellinger. Judge in 2017, Seager 2016, Bryant 2015. It's funny, you got a huge gap like right here from 97 to 2008 and then 2008 to 2015. So lately you don't see it very often though. But Julio Rodriguez, that's going to be fun, man. And imagine if that guy doesn't mess up his swing or something during that. But
imagine if he goes off against Pujols in one of the rounds and there's just
that'd be
20-year gap between the two guys.
Yeah, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Looking at the participants as of right now, it's looking really fun. Schwarber's in. I didn't see Schwarber.
I think we have one open spot still.
Ooh, this is fun. I love that Pujols is in it. I think that's really fun. In a way, like the legacy pick, it might seem a little cheesy, but I'm glad guys like Pujols and Miguel Cabrera are going to be there. Yeah. Pujols in this thing, that's fun. He's not really going to do much for your team anymore, but watch Pujols. He'll do good in this thing. Soto's back in it again. I really like this field. Ronald Acuna Jr.
One of the best home run derby candidates ever, Pete Alonso. He's got to be the favorite right now.
Yeah, Pete Alonso is definitely the favorite. Absolutely, he's He's two-time defending champion. Yeah. I think Schwarber can make some noise. Oh yeah, absolutely. This is a really fun home run derby.
It would be fun to see Ohtani for that last spot. I mean, it's in Los Angeles. There's a couple Dodgers you can look at. Will Smith. I mean, even throw Cody Bellinger
why
in
not?
there, see what happens. See if it fixes Cody Bellinger's swing.
I think you got to put you have to put a Dodger in here. I think you have to, right? Hometown. You got to put a Dodger in here. Who on the Dodgers could be a guy?
Muncy could be fun. Freeman's not really your typical home run derby type guy.
I think Freeman's done a derby, right?
Has he?
I think Freeman did a derby one time.
That sounds vaguely familiar, yeah.
I think Freddie Freeman home run. Was it 2021?
Did he do it? No way did he do it last year.
I feel like he's done a home run derby before. Has Freeman ever done? 2018. Yeah, 2018 home run derby. So could do Freeman. I mean, honestly, it doesn't seem like the prototypical home run derby guy, but Mookie Betts could be fun. Yep. So I think you got to go with a Dodger.
The lineup's so stacked, you can pick anyone there except for Jake Lamb, and it'll be fun to watch.
Right. I could see Muncy probably not doing it because he's been kind of hurt this year.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's only played. Has he? Well, maybe he wasn't. I think he was on the IL at one point.
Ooh,
but yeah, Muncy actually he's having a really down year. So I don't know. To me, I think go with Freeman or Betts, man. Go with Betts. I'd like to see Mookie Betts in it. Why not?
Park Air says O'Neal Cruz, and man, that would be sweet.
Ooh, that'd be fun too. That'd be fun. Oh man, let's do it. I'm all about it. All righty. So let's move on here. Got a couple more stories before we are done for the night. Here we go. All right. So where are we at? Okay. We did have a trade that happened this past week. We had the Braves and the Royals. Kind of a different looking trade from what we're used to seeing. We had Drew Waters going to the Royals for a draft pick. You know, I wish that you could see more of that. Because you see it obviously in basketball, football, you see draft picks. In baseball, draft picks are a little weirder because they're not as, I don't want to say guaranteed, but yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, draft picks are never guaranteed to work out, but baseball more likely than not. So to me, I'm not surprised you don't see it, but I wish you could see more of it because I don't know. I just think it's fun and different. But yeah, let's just kind of dive into this. We do have the trade pulled up here, so let me share the screen. Here we go. Okay, so going to the Braves here, it says cash because you can't just pull up draft pick. But John, the owner of Baseball Trade Values, he put this trade here. So for the draft pick, he put $7 million of cash because that's what it was worth. It's what was it? It was a compensation pick. I think it was a compensation pick, right?
Comp A, yeah. So it's right after the first round.
Right. So that was worth roughly around $7 million. Mm-hmm. So Drew Waters, $7 million of value, and they also got a couple of prospects, Hoffman and Alexander. So overall, Royals getting about $8.5 million of value, while the Braves are getting a draft pick worth around $7 million. So were you surprised to see this trade? I mean, obviously you've done a lot with this site, but when you saw a trade like this, were you surprised to see it?
Absolutely. I saw the first report of the trade roll in, and I don't know if the first tweet I saw just didn't have the draft pick in it or if I just read through it too fast or something. And I saw, okay, Waters, Hoffman, and another prospect traded to the Royals, and Albies just went down. Are they getting Whit Merrifield? Like, is that what's going on here? That was the first thought in my mind, but instead, no. It's And off the top of my head, I was like, okay, I think that lines up. I checked with John, and yes, $7 million-ish is kind of our approximated value for the draft pick. The last few years, the prospects that have been taken in that 35th spot or so where that is have been between $6 and $8 million in value. So we're going to call it 7, rough estimate. But Waters made a lot of sense as a trade candidate for the Braves. His stock has fallen pretty considerably over the last couple of years, and they've done a good job of identifying who to keep and who to trade. They traded Christian Pache, another talented but flawed center fielder. They traded him in the Matt Olson deal to Oakland. They hung on to Michael Harris, and he's killing it for them right now. And they're trading Drew Waters, who, like I said, he's been falling down the lists a little bit. He just has so much swing and miss in his game, and he hasn't been able to figure out AAA pitching after 3 attempts now. And that's sometimes that can be a pretty good sign of when a guy's just not quite going to put it together. But he's got a lot of tools, and that's something that the Royals always look for. He's toolsy. He's got raw power. He's got some speed. He's a decent defender. He just needs to figure out contact, his plate discipline, and then he could be a pretty quality player. So that's the gamble that they're taking. Plus, the Royals, they've been bad for so long. They've got to be antsy to be good, and if they can fix Drew Waters, it'll happen in the next year or two, and he'll make it straight to the bigs. But that draft pick might take 3, 4, 5 years, depending on whether they take a high school, college, whatever. And that's kind of what you were getting at, the root of why draft pick trades aren't as frequent or as exciting in baseball as they are in other sports. It's because in football, basketball, those guys are in the league within a year or two more often than not. And baseball, they just have to work their way through so many more levels of minor leagues to get to that point. And so the Braves, they're good right now and they want to stay good for a while. They're okay kind of, taking a chance down the road. Waters would have been blocked anyway. But instead they can pick a guy that they like better in the draft right now. And maybe he can help out the team in 3 years when players are starting to get a little older.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the Braves, they're getting a pretty decent draft pick out of this. And there's going to be some guys that could definitely fall to this pick here. And there's a lot of depth in this draft. If we're taking a look at some of these guys, like one guy that pops off, I wonder if he can get to them, is Drew Gilbert. That's a guy, good left-handed swing out of Tennessee. Good hit tool, not too much for the power right now, but an athletic guy. I wonder if they feel like they, even someone like Brock Jones out of Stanford, a very athletic guy. I wonder if they feel like they see someone in here like a college bat. There's also Sterling Thompson out of Florida as well. I think they kind of looked at this and they said, there's some good guys in this draft that we could end up getting. I would not be surprised at all if they end up taking an outfielder in this draft, because they probably just looked at it because there was a lot of depth, and we'll have to wait and see. I think that's going to be, I'm going to be paying attention to that pick. Absolutely. Because that's, and for the Royals, hey, why not? It's not like you're really losing anything. You've drafted, you obviously still have your top 10 pick for this draft. So it's like, yeah, it would have been nice to have, the compensation pick as well, but hey, whatever. You're getting Drew Waters out of it. That's a guy where obviously he's shown what he can do. Let's see if you can get him to that point where obviously they did great work with Bobby Witt Jr., obviously very talented, but we've seen a lot of guys who were very talented players, but you still got to develop them. So they obviously did some great work with him, and let's see if they can do that with Drew Waters as well. But I think that was a big reason for this, was because there is depth in this draft, and they feel like they see someone. I find it also funny that it was this close to the draft. So they probably feel like, yeah, there's a guy here that we have our eye on that we're going to use for this pick.
And it also makes sense for the Royals. Players' draft stock is bouncing all over the place up to this point in the year. And, maybe at the start of the year, there was a guy they had in mind, and now he's raised his stock. He's not going to be available at that point anymore. Maybe they just personally don't like the options available at that pick, and so they'd rather take on a project like Waters where they, they know what he is and they know how close he could be to the bigs, and they'll work on him instead.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely thought that was fun. You kind of hit the nail on the head there with the Whit Merrifield thing, because that's where I was like, wait, Whit Merrifield? Because I'm thinking like, when they lost to Albies, that could be a guy they go get. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I feel like he ends up just staying with the Royals. I feel like they have the ship has sailed on that, where you could have gone something for him. That's like, talked about David Peralta with the Diamondbacks. It's like Whit Merrifield is that guy for them. So, but here we go. Couple more stories here. Just really quick, we'll just touch on this because we're almost out of time. Let's talk about the Mets. Looking for a bat and a reliever. Sandy Alderson talking about this not too long ago. Here we go. All righty. Sandy Alderson. Mets seeking another bat and bullpen help. Hold on a second. Am I still doing this? There we go. That's better. So, yeah. But he was talking to the New York Post and basically pointing out that those are their needs as of right now. And I agree. I think you could make an argument for the Mets. I think they could use a little bit of everything. If you were to kind of put one big need for the Mets, what do you think is if they can only go with one piece? I feel like they end up finding a way to address a few things, but what do you think they need the most?
That's tough because you're kind of weighing the short-term need versus the longer term, because like I mentioned earlier, I think they could really use a starting pitcher with an extra year or two of control. Rounds out the rotation for right now, and it gives you a lot of security heading into the offseason. I didn't even mention before, Taijuan Walker is also going to be a free agent, and he's been very good for them. So they're going to have a lot to figure out this offseason. And I think one more arm really helps with that. But As far as this season, getting through this year and making it, they want to make the World Series. If they want to do that, I think they need some more thump in the lineup. Wilson Contreras is going to be a name that you hear a lot there, and I think he's a good fit for a lot of teams. A lot of years the catching market isn't too exciting, and you hear about they don't really, teams aren't super excited to add a catcher at the deadline because they have to learn the staff on the fly. They'd rather make a move like that in the offseason. But Contreras is hitting so well, and he's already not the greatest defender in the world, so there's a lot of teams where you could have him as kind of rotating between DH and catching a few times a week.
Yeah.
The Mets, that works pretty well because they love Tomas Nido defensively. They love James McCann defensively when he's healthy. So I think they're a team that works for something like that. But the Giants need a catcher, and the Astros could use a catcher. And so there's probably a couple other teams there as well. So there's going to be a lot of competition for Contreras, which if we're talking about hitters, he's probably the cleanest fit to me. They could go after a Josh Bell, but that's kind of hamstringing you. You're kind of forced to stick him at first base or DH every day, and you already have Alonso. So those two spots are just locked in every day. You can't use DH to get guys a day off. So he's not as clean of a fit to me, but Contreras is going to have a lot of competition. If I had to pick a name, it's Contreras, but I'd also say that about the Giants, and I'd also say that about the Astros. So
I definitely agree. They could use a little thump. When you take a look at where they rank at with their hitting, right now they're 19th in home runs. So, I mean, they're very good average-wise, on-base-wise, OPS-wise, but it does feel like they could use a little thump in here. Like I said, you're ranked 19th in home runs. It's funny looking at the starting rotation now. It's like, okay, look at the rotation. It's, wow, looking kind of healthy here. And you're going to get DeGrom back. Yeah. Hopefully he's good for the rest of the year for them. And your rotation is all of a sudden looking amazing, just like it was supposed to coming in. And then the bullpen, I feel like they really miss Aaron Loop. That's a guy you should not have let him go. You don't have a lefty setup guy. Like, to me, I'm a big believer in having like a good lefty that you can turn to. You got Rodriguez, and he's fine and all, but I don't know. I like the FIP, a 3.15, but I don't know. He walks a lot of guys, so I feel like they could use a lefty here. Could an Andrew Chafin be a guy? Someone like that. Someone they can just count on in the late innings. 7th, 8th inning, you feel okay giving him the ball. So bullpen, I think they could find a way to make it work with the offense. It's been fine. I think guys will end up stepping up for them, but it would be nice for me. I would prioritize the bullpen right now because it feels like you're a little limited when it comes to options. Starting rotation, I think, is going to be fine. I'm kind of both. I think a bat reliever, just like what they're looking for. I'm glad he said it because obviously it makes sense. So, but that would be my pick. I would go, if you can, go get someone like Chafin, maybe Gregory Soto, possibly, but I don't know because he's under control too. So the Mets.
Yeah. Real quick, I have to relocate real quick. I've got some people on the way. I don't want them showing up in the background, so I'm going to relocate real quick.
You're good. But we're going to get to our last story here. And just a small little story. We got the Rockies. They're open to trading Alex Colome and Chad Kuhl. And I'm going to be honest with you, not a surprise here, when you're really looking at what the Rockies are doing. You got Daniel Bard. You got some other guys like CJ Cron, but I don't think they end up trading CJ Cron. Daniel Bard is a guy where, sure, you could move him, but I don't know. The whole thing with Daniel Bard, he was out for a pretty long time there, and maybe he just feels good about being in Colorado. I don't know. Do you want to move him? Possibly. Yeah. I think I would love for the Red Sox to get someone like Daniel Bard, but it makes sense that Alex Colome is a guy that you would think about moving. And then Chad Kuhl, I don't think you're really going to get a whole lot for those guys. But I think Colome, obviously, with the kind of year he's having, but then again, when you look at someone like Alex Colome, if we're pulling up the numbers here, Colome, taking a look here in the setup role for the Rockies, just sharing the screen here. But yeah, with Colome, a 2.94 ERA, 2.66 FIP. However, while the FIP and the ERA are being kind to him, the expected ERA from Baseball Savant is a 4.92. With Alex Colome, Josh, do you feel like there's really a whole lot there? Or, I don't know, what are you thinking about him?
He's interesting because he's always kind of been like that. You look up and down that list right there on the Fangraphs page for him. He's always kind of outperformed either his xERA or his FIP or whatever metric you're choosing. And so at some point you got to believe that. I don't think anybody's believing that to the point where, they're trading for him, expecting him to be a lockdown closer for sure. Yeah. Like, I don't think anyone's expecting that from him. He doesn't miss many bats. That's always scary from a late inning arm. But it is notable that he's doing this in Coors of all places.
Right.
We have both Colome and you mentioned Kuhl as well. We have both of them. I'll have to double check Kuhl actually, but I know Colome is in negative value. Yeah. So Kuhl is at negative 0.4 and Colome is at negative 1.5, but it's kind of splitting hairs a little bit. If they both perform between now and the deadline, that'll come up a little bit. If the Rockies kick in a couple million for one of them to cover some salary, that'll help. And, there's just so little pitching, both in the late innings and in the back end of the rotation that's available on the market, that there's a chance a team overpays a little bit. So the Rockies aren't getting anything insane for either of these guys. I think they should move both of them. I'm less confident about all of the other players on their roster that would make sense to trade. Jose Iglesias, CJ Cron, definitely not Herman Marquez. Those guys, I feel like they're not going anywhere. On a rational team, they might, but this is the Rockies we're talking about. They pick their guys, they stick with them for better or usually for worse. So I could definitely see a couple of these guys. Bard kind of falls into that second category too, where he's just been kind of a Rockies guy.
Yeah. He's found a home there, and it's, I'll tell you right now, when I look at, if you were to put Kuhl and Colome together, that just screams St. Louis Cardinals to me. When you look at Colome's numbers, like 6-7 strikeouts per 9, ton of ground balls, sounds like a St. Louis Cardinal.
Mm-hmm.
Chad Kuhl is giving you innings. Great. Perfect package for the St. Louis Cardinals. Not going to cost you anything. In fact, they will pay you to take them, basically. That screams Cardinals to me. I wonder if that can end up being a fit. I think Colome is a bit of a dark horse on this trade market. I think he could end up being a guy that quietly ends up doing really well for a team in the second half. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, anyway, that took a little longer than I expected tonight. We had a lot to talk about. When you start talking trades, man, it's, you say, yeah, probably an hour 15. Yeah, nope. When we talk trades, you get so into it. But before we get out of here, we do have some super chats here. I want to thank everyone for the super chats. A lot of support tonight. Really do appreciate it. But really, the best way you can show your support, especially during these shows, is just go check out baseballtradevalues.com. It really is the best trade simulator out there. It's still crazy to me, man, how people out there like, yeah, I don't really buy into that site. There's a bigger YouTuber out there, baseball YouTuber. He was like, yeah, I don't think that site really makes a whole lot of sense. It's like, you're wrong. You were wrong. Anyway, but Brandon Dillman. O's are up 7-1 in the ninth. Assuming they win, every team in the AL East will be above 500. I just said that today. Every team in the AL East is at 500. First time since 2012 where every team from a division has a winning record. The Orioles, man, they're America's team this year, man. They're just, you got to love what they're doing. I want to sit here and say they're going to fade. It's easy to be pessimistic, but I don't know, man. What if you were to give a prediction on the Orioles end of the year? Where do you think they finish?
I think they're, man, I want to be fun. I want to say.
I know, right? I want to be, but it's like
I don't want to be putting cold water on
like,
this.
No.
Yeah. It's got to be, 500-ish or
I'll go 83 and 79 tops.
Okay.
I think eventually, but God, watch, they'll find a way to win like 95, and it's like, yeah, God.
No, they'll win 84 just to spite you.
Yes, I agree. But Brandon, thank you so much for the super chat. Orioles are fun, man. I'm excited to see. I hope they're above 500 at the deadline because I want to see what they do. The more teams in contention, the more fun the deadline. Jimmy Productions, Dylan Cease to the Rays. Yeah, Jimmy, I got it. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm going to have to disagree with that one. I think the Rays would love Dylan Cease. I think any team would like Dylan Cease, but I do wonder what the Rays do. Of course, they got Betancourt from the A's. That's such a Rays type of move. I thought Wilson Contreras would be a really good fit for the Rays. They could have used the bat. Not really typically their style. They did get Nelson Cruz last year as a rental, but yeah. Here's an interesting guy. U.S. veteran. Thank you for the super chat. Jared Kelenic can't seem to figure it out either. This is an interesting one, man. It's funny because you got the Mariners doing well, but I think Kelenic is still down in the minors, right?
Mm-hmm. Pretty sure. Last I checked,
I think he is still in the minors. But I mean, he was only hurting that team. Yeah, I think the Mariners are a really interesting team at the deadline. I think, you did just make a move with Carlos Santana, and he actually helped win a game the other day. So, Jared Kelenic, man, isn't it crazy? Just this guy had so much hype, and maybe he could use a clean slate somewhere, possibly. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough. It feels a little bit early,
Yeah,
it feels like move that might be made in the off season at the earliest. But especially, maybe if the Mariners were just killing it and, they're a couple games back of the Astros fighting for the division, maybe then you get aggressive, you pull the trigger. But they have so much young talent there. They can afford to be patient. And, maybe they sneak into the third wild card. It's weird to say that, third wild card, expanded playoffs, still getting used to it. But maybe they sneak into that this year with a couple, smaller moves. Okay, but I don't think you're selling too much of the farm, too much of that young stock of talent yet. I think you still got a whole lot of time. You're kind of playing with house money this year.
Yeah, and if we take a look at Kelenic's numbers in AAA, he's doing well. He's hitting 298, 359 on base, 607 slugging. He's playing great. It's just the majors where it's like, I don't know. You're hitting this well in AAA, so people are, wondering, is this going to be a guy that ends up being like a quadruple A kind of a guy where he's extremely good in AAA. He just can't seem to just get over that hump. I think he will eventually. There's just too much talent with that guy. U.S. veteran, thank you so much. Jimmy Productions, who do you think the Nationals should draft? It's going to be interesting with the Nationals in this draft, right? Let's pull up the MLB Draft. Oh, I'm so I know we're talking trades tonight, but man, oh man, I'm getting into draft mode right now. I love me some draft. Okay, you got the Orioles, you got the Diamondbacks, you got the Rangers, you got the Pirates, you got the Nationals. Right now, everyone is saying for the number one pick, everyone is thinking Drew Jones. It's the Baltimore Orioles. They never go with the best player in the draft. They're going to go under slot. They're going to do it. Watch. They're going to take Brooks Lee, number one overall. They're going to get him under slot. They're not going to take Drew Jones. This is not going to happen. I think Drew Jones, this is just me, whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think it really the Nationals are in an interesting spot because some guys could fall to them. You got guys like Jackson Holiday. You never know. Maybe he could even go number one, something like that. Maybe that could be a bit of a surprise. Probably not. High school guys, I don't think the Orioles would be more inclined to go college because then they could more chance to go under slot in that case. I think the Nationals are interesting. You got some guys. I think Kevin Parada is a guy to be on the lookout for. He's number 6 overall on the pipeline draft order. Could they go, if Elijah Green is there, super upside kind of a guy, could you go with someone like that? It's going to be interesting. Could you go with a Cam Collier, who really nice left-handed swing, went to junior college at 17 last year? Could you go with him? I think Parada is an interesting guy, the top catcher. I would for the Nationals. I think they go with either Parada, maybe Green. I think Green is the guy. If there's a guy that's going to fall in this draft, it's going to be Elijah Green because he has a lot of swing and miss. He's got super upside, uber potential, but he has a lot of swing and miss in his game. If he can clean that up, great. But I think with Elijah Green, I think he could be the Khalil Watson of last year that ends up dropping. Maybe the Nationals take him at number 5. The Nationals last year, they went with Brady House. So that was a high school guy. Maybe they go back to college route. I don't know. I think Green could be a guy if he's there. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the Nationals end up doing. So
yeah, I know the Nationals, they aren't afraid to prioritize ceiling over floor when it comes to the draft. That's kind of what House was, right?
Right. I think Elijah Green, if he's there, I think could make some sense. I know I've been reading that they've been scouting Peralta a lot. So that is always something to keep in consideration. But the MLB draft is always such a weird thing. I didn't think we were going to get Marcelo Mayer last year. I did not think. But then again, it's like MLB.com, they're always like, oh, you take the best guy, But you got to look at what they do, how they've drafted in the past, what their strategies look like. I don't think the Orioles are going to take Drew Jones. I think Brooks Lee will end up being the guy. I just think he's the most polished player, and they're going to be able to get him a little cheaper,
And it's tough because, previously, even with kind of a slam dunk 1-1 overall kind of guy, you can at least project out, the first 5 or 10 picks with some, there's always going to be some surprises, but some level of certainty there. But the Orioles just hold it so close to their chest until draft day. They don't let it leak out who they're really looking at. And so you kind of just have to throw up your shoulders and shrug about even that top 5, who's going to get who. I do know Arizona media is already getting kind of excited about Drew Jones. That's who they kind of have their eyes on if he falls to 2, if he doesn't go spot 1. But even that's a question mark. So who knows? Dude,
for the Diamondbacks, Tamar Johnson, man. Already loving it. Committed to Arizona State.
Yeah.
Nah, don't go to Arizona State. Come to the Arizona Diamondbacks. That's best hitter, high school prep player. He's kind of like, to me, the Marcelo Mayer of last year, where the defense is good with Mayer, but because you also had Jordan Lawler as well, where he was kind of looked at more of like the overall kind of a player, like kind of good at everything. But Marcelo Mayer was really good with hitting, where he had like that natural feel for it. It's showing in the minor leagues. I think Tamar Johnson, that bat is special. I think just he's a different kind of hitter. I think it's like, to me, when you got that, the thing with Drew Jones is he has more of a ceiling. I feel like Tamar Johnson, I think, has a higher floor, if that makes sense. Like Drew Jones, every time I think of him, I kind of think of Apache a little bit, if that makes any sense. Like really good glove, obviously getting it from his dad, but the bat is good, but like how good can it be? With Tamar Johnson, there's like a really good chance that bat is going to be good. Like it's sure he can end up just being a second baseman, but Lawler and Tamar Johnson up the middle for years to come. Sounds pretty, and they're only a year apart. Oh, that's a middle infield I would love to have for years, man. That's who I got for the Diamondbacks. And then I think Drew Jones just goes to the Rangers, or could even fall, maybe even a little bit more, maybe one more spot to the Pirates, Rangers, I wonder if they would end up taking Drew Jones because they've been going college heavy. Could they go with someone like Peralta, out of Arizona? So I think it's going to be really interesting. Or not Arizona, sorry, Georgia Tech. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We have one more super chat here. Jimmy Productions. Mets should trade for Bell and Brandon Finnegan. I want J.D. Davis or Dominic Smith and some prospects back. Yeah. Like you said, wouldn't be as clean of a fit. Finnegan could be a pretty decent arm for that bullpen. Can address a need there. Funny with Dominic Smith, man. Remember that? Like he was asking for a trade, wanted out, and then it's like, oh, well, look at him now. He's in the starting lineup. So,
well, I think on that one, if you are trading Davis in that deal, I don't know if the Mets would, but if you do, it maybe makes the Bell fit a little easier because Davis is also should be DHing most of the times he's in the lineup. So maybe it's a bit less of a logjam there. I do think Dominic Smith, he's got a good shot to end up somewhere. He doesn't have a whole lot of value right now, but he seems like a bit of a change of scenery type. And, it's easy to see a team like the Reds or the A's who have nothing in their lineup and can give him that DH spot or first base or whatever. It's not hard to see them buying low on him and giving him a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And one more, Jimmy Productions, our Nationals fan here. I hope Tamar Johnson goes to the Nationals. Yeah, it would be pretty nice. I think he's the star of the show, man. I love that guy. I was watching some highlights of him just the other day. Oh, dude is in high school and he is hit. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Rafael Devers, like that kind of a hitter.
Wow.
Like I feel like he could end up being like, he's not really known for his defense, but I think he could be a better defender than Rafael Devers, obviously at a different position, but the same kind of impact, defensively. But the hitting, it's just, that to me is the guy in that draft. I really like him a lot. I'm excited for it. Everyone, make sure you come out Sunday night. We're going to be watching the draft together. I'm going to react to all the picks. And look out for tomorrow. I'm going to have a mock draft. I might go live with it. I'm not quite sure. But, Josh, man, I want to thank you. I know I said probably like an hour and a half. We got to around 2 hours today. So
I'm used to it. This is how the podcast always goes.
Yeah,
I tell like John hour and a half, and then 2 hours later, we're still not done. It's a problem.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you. Anytime you want to come on, if you want to tell John, just John, I got this one tonight. Hey, anytime, man. Anytime. This was great. All the super chats for tonight. Thank you, everyone. I think we got up to around almost 300 people in the chat tonight. Everyone, again, go check out Baseball Trade Values, especially during this time of the year. I'm sure the site is moving a little slower at times with all the volume, but I know John is taking care of it over there. He's doing what he's going to do. But absolutely, this is the time. If you want to simulate some trades, go on baseballtradevalues.com. But
yep, and we'll be pushing another couple rounds of updates so that everything is as updated as possible for when these deals come in. So you might see some numbers changing over the next couple weeks.
Yeah,
we're getting everything right before the trades start rolling in.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited for it. But Josh, thank you, and everyone who came out tonight, thank you so much. And have yourself a good night. And we'll talk to you next time.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks, Robbie.
See you later.